Thank you for joining us this morning for our City Council study session. We'll go ahead and get started. Ruth, could you please call the roll?
Yes, sir. Adamson?
Here.
Gray?
Here.
Brown?
Here.
Johnston?
Here.
Moore?
Here.
Orr?
Here.
Black?
Here. Thank you. Agenda item number 2 will be Benefit and Insurance Consultant Levitt Group presentation. Human Resources staff will be present with representatives from the Levitt Group to answer questions from the Council and Mayor about the group's services, specifically address the following: A, Teladoc, B, Consulting Services, and C, Compliance Services, and D, History in regards to experience ratings, premiums, and consulting fees. Good morning.
Good morning. Mayor, Council, Nicole Harms, HR Consultant.
Travis Argyle with the Levitt Group. Good morning.
AJ Argyle with Levitt Group.
So I just want to, before they jump into their presentation, I just want to remind everyone what we talked about last time. So last time we were here, we brought 3 groups to you. We brought the Levitt Group, Mercer's our current representative and consultant, and then the Murray Group. And you guys expressed interest in the Levitt Group, so we brought them here to talk to you today. Does anyone have any questions before we start?
We will in the future.
I know. So I will turn it over.
Okay. Thank you, Mayor, Council. We appreciate you letting us have a few moments of your time. Our goal today was just to allow you to get more familiar with us, our services, what we have to offer as an organization to the city of Pocatello. Us coming in, we don't just consider ourselves consultants or brokers. We come in and consider ourselves an advocate not only for the city of Pocatello, but also for the employees, assisting in claims matters, Medicare, Medicaid, also an extension to your HR. We like to come in and take care of all their benefits needs when it comes to benefit planning. But also, as we talk about our services, these services are all kind of put together, each a piece to the puzzle to help manage your healthcare costs. And it's a model that's put together and is constantly changing, as you probably understand, with ACA and then the transition that we've had in presidency, and now we have a bill in Senate that we're waiting for the release of details on that. So what we were going to quickly do is kind of go through our services, what we offer as an organization. We are out of Idaho Falls, the office that we operate out of, but we actually have offices from Rexburg all the way down into the Salt Lake area. So pretty robust on being able to service, and we're here in the Pocatello area quite frequently. Any questions? I know you've kind of discussed our fees as far as these services. We were going to kind of just cover our services, and as you have questions, please feel free to pepper us with those. One of the services that we offer within our consulting or benefit fee is compliance and healthcare reform, which has become a big issue ever since the 2009-2010 ACA. We come in as an organization, not only offer seminars, but webinars as well to help update on the reporting, the 1094Cs, 1095Cs, and then also I think this is going to be a great service moving forward as the Senate bill gets pushed through and some changes that are inevitable to the healthcare system. One of the things underwriting that we offer is we actually have our own on-staff underwriters and actuaries. And what that brings to the table is these are actually Blue Cross Blue Shield former employees or actuaries or underwriters. So when we get the renewal, it's not just us as the brokers or consultants that are going through and negotiating the renewal. They actually come to the table and negotiate that. And if you flip the slide over, you'll see here's a couple examples of groups about your size and where the renewals came into. And we can't always promise these types of renewal increases. Obviously, it comes down to your experience and what years you've had, but we really drill down into large claimants, how the plan's being managed, wellness. We'll also talk about some tools, some analytic tools that we build into the program through our services that help to do that. But you can see the city of Idaho Falls is looking at a 0% this year. That started at about, what was it, 6%. Brad Hall & Associates, which is relatively large to your, or relatively around your size as far as employees, started at 5.5%. We're actually able to get a decrease. And then Bonneville School District, which is a little bit larger, ended up at a 2.4%. If you flip the slide over, you'll see the city of Idaho Falls, and I'll let AJ speak a little bit closely to this. When we talk about our benefits team, me and AJ usually always take leads, but we also have an account exec that will be over your organization. We also have an internal TPA we'll talk about that does flex, HSA, COBRA Administration built into this. So you actually, at the end of the day, are going to have 5 points of contact, and we all work together as a team. We're always on the same page. So at any period of time during the day, you'll have somebody you can reach out to and either assist employees or assist with the plan management. I'll let AJ talk a little about the City of Idaho Falls and the history that we've had with them.
And we've actually had the City of Idaho Falls since 1991. So the first renewal we would have worked on would have been the 1992 renewal. And as you can see, we've had the City of Idaho Falls for decades. When we broker, and we see it as more of a partnership, our goal is long-term growth, working together. And if you go back and look through the increases there, clear back through 92, what I really want you to pay attention to there is the average. The overall average since we've taken over that group is a 4.64%. We're pretty proud of that. I don't think there's very many groups of this size and in this industry that can say that. And then if you look at the 10-year average as well, you're looking at a 3.41% increase, and if you take the last 5 years, a 2.14% increase. And I mean, I think this one's probably the most comparable to you guys, where it's just down the road, same industry, similar size. I think, it's pretty comparable overall with that. So I think that if you give us a chance, I think that, with a long-term partnership, we can do these kinds of things for you as well. We'll work together, and we'll work with the carriers to get you the most competitive plan possible. During that time at City of Idaho Falls, we haven't been with just one carrier. We started out originally with Blue Cross, then it moved to Regents Blue Shield of Idaho, and is now back currently with Blue Cross of Idaho. So it's not like we're keeping you with just one carrier, but we do try to partner with the carrier as well for a long-term relationship. I think we were with Regents for 10 years, Cross before that for 10, and now we've been back with Cross for about 8 years. So we're not someone that's going to bounce you from carrier to carrier. We're going to find the most competitive carrier and work with them. Yeah.
So you make the recommendation to us in terms of what carrier can provide the best services and the best rate? Is that
Absolutely, yes. And we'll tell you also if we think it's a good idea or not to go out for formal RFP, which is request for proposal. We'll say, look, based on your current experience, and we usually will check with the carriers first. So we'll kind of vet you a certain amount. We can't actually put you out to bid without your permission in formal RFP. We can say, hey, we've got a group this size that's going on. How aggressive are you right now in the marketplace? So how are your underwriters looking right now? So we'll have a pretty good idea before we ever tell you to go out for RFP who's going to be the most competitive and if anyone is aggressive. And depending on where your experience is, depending on where other carriers are, we'll be able to tell you when and how we should do that. Last time we went out to the City of Idaho Falls, for example, we knew we weren't going to go anywhere. The council really pushed for it, and we did it anyway, and no one came within 7% of our current rates. So, I mean, we're happy to do it either way, but we always try to, limit the amount of work we put on HR, limit the amount of work we put on you, and try to have a pretty good idea of where we're going before we go down that road. So,
thank you.
Any other questions? We'll just keep rolling through unless you stop us for time's sake. We talked about our internal TPA services. That stands for third-party administrator. I believe we're one of the only brokerages in the state of Idaho that actually has a third-party administrator in-house, which basically means we can manage your COBRA, which I believe currently your HR is doing in-house, which can be a larger liability. We take that off your plate. We can do that for all carriers. Flex, if you offer Flex, HSAs, and then we work with HRA and HRA VIBA providers as well. We also come in and when we talk about compliance, not just your ACA reporting, we also talk about HIPAA compliance. We actually have a company that we partner with that insures you for $1 million hold harmless. And what that means is if you have a HIPAA breach, they actually step in and they cover you up to $1 million if there is a lawsuit associated with that. Also what they do is they offer HIPAA training. They come in and once a year certify everybody on the staff of HIPAA, meaning HR, or if you want directors involved as well, they can dig in and get as deep on HIPAA. Talking to your HR, it sounds like they've already got a good grasp on HIPAA, but I think the biggest value of this program is that $1 million hold harmless, to know that, hey, if we do have an issue, that we've got somebody and an attorney that's got our back. Communication and online services. We have the ability to come in and put everything online. So employees can actually, instead of doing the paper applications, we've got an enrollment team that can come in and do the enrollments as a team, discuss benefits, things of that nature, but we can also put it online. So if you ever decide you want your benefit options online, where you can go have employees go out to a link and enroll for their benefits online and get paperless, we can include that as well, and that also includes the ACA reporting. We also have an HR consulting, ThinkHR, you flip the slide over, that will back up your HR department. The nice thing about this service is if your HR has a question, or if they say, hey, we would just like somebody else that's HR certified, that we can reach out to just to get a second opinion. This service offers that as well. There's also an employee handbook builder, a library, a lot of resources and tools that are also built in, and that program is called ThinkHR. We've had a lot of success with that.
A lot of our larger clients utilize that on a daily basis. And we also have an in-house attorney as well that you would have access to if we need to ever run something by them as well. So.
We also offer telemedicine, which I believe you've become fairly familiarized with. We've been working with it actually since about 2010. There's been changes in our states with legislation. A couple, 2-3 years ago, it was allowed in Idaho again, but it has to be through video contact. So the program that we have, our telemedicine program, is built into our services. I think the value of our program is a $0 copay. And the value of Teladoc is on average, it saves you an urgent care or a family medicine visit about $141, or an ER visit about $2,500. We'll talk a bit more about that briefly. But the value of it is you're going to have the millennials that are going to love it. It's just a generational thing. They're going to jump on. I utilized Teladoc for a couple of years. This year alone, it's already saved me. I average between $600 and $700 because I have small children. I can actually, there's an app on my phone. I hit the video chat. I talk with the doctor. And actually, the first time I used the program was kind of a funny story. My family doctor growing up was the first doctor that I spoke to. They have to be licensed in Idaho, and he popped up on the screen and he said, "Travis?" Like, "Dr. Bowman?" I was like, man, this thing is good. And so we're able to chat about my kids, and the nice thing is they can prescribe a prescription for you. And I'm lucky, my pharmacy's right next to our office, so I didn't miss a beat. I was able to do the video chat, grab the prescription on the way home. They text you when the prescription's ready, and I'm on my way. I don't pay a copay except for the prescription drug, which you can talk to them about what's the best fit. And I just took the prescription home. Didn't have to take time out of my day, run home, get the kids, bring more people around the germs. Even if the flu or cold's bad enough, I can throw the prescription in the door and run. I'm just joking, I wouldn't do that, but it's valuable. What we found with this program is we've tried groups where we've actually had a copay on it. Say a $30 or a $40 copay. My understanding is you have a $25 copay here currently, and a lot of these programs offer it for a $40 copay. The downside of that is, like we talked about, the millennials are going to jump right on this. They're going to have their app on their phone, and this is second nature to them. But it has to be incentivized for an employee to say, okay, this is going to save me my copay. I'm going to give it a shot. And it comes down to education. How are you going to educate them? And we do that through mail pieces, email, employee meetings. We'll also talk about, we have a benefit video that we offer as well, just a link that gets sent out, not just to employees, but their spouses, which is great because if you have an employee whose spouse manages the benefit plan, this benefit video goes to him, they click on the link, and it walks through their benefits. We've been doing this for a couple years as well, and we found out that it even cuts down on your HR's question load quite significantly because of these questions that usually come to them that are answered in the video. You can see on the next visit, like we talked about Teladoc. Another thing about Teladoc that I really like it has geo-tracking. So if you have the app on your phone and you pull into the urgent care parking lot or a family medicine doctor parking lot, not trying to take business away from them at all, but it says, hey, just so you know, you've got Teladoc, remember, and it's a $0 copay. It pops up on your phone. So I can say, oh yeah, that's right, I had Teladoc. It's just a cold or a flu situation, a rash. Dermatology, I had an issue with my son. It was great. I took a few snapshots of a rash he had, forwarded it when I sent the video chat. The doctor looked at it before. It also, when it takes your health history, it takes that into account on who you're going to talk to on the phone. So is it somebody that works more with children or more on the dermatology side? And so I was able to talk to a dermatologist. He said, yeah, this is what it looks like. I'm going to call a prescription, let's give it a shot, and I was able to just go pick it up and get started right away with it. But the Teladoc program, as you can see, kind of how it works, I kind of explained it. The best way for me to explain it is it's just an app on your phone. You enter your health history in there. It's tracked, and then when you need it, you basically just hit the button, says who's the consultation for myself, my children, whoever. When do you want the call? I usually just hit as soon as possible. If they're not available right then, I can set my phone to the side, go back to work. My phone rings when they're ready, and the video chat starts. In Idaho, unfortunately, it still has to be face-to-face, which I prefer. Some people don't. Other states, you can just do actually over the phone, but our legislation decided you still needed to have that face-to-face. But as long as you have a smartphone or a computer with a camera, that video chat is not an issue.
What percentage of calls are they able to handle that way?
between 92 and 95% of all calls are resolved through Teladoc. I mean, obviously, if you've got a severe issue going on, a possible heart attack, or you've lost a finger, you're not calling Teladoc. These are things, the onesie-twosie type stuff, the pink eyes, the strep throats. I mean, let's be honest, as parents, most of the time, 9 times out of 10, you know what your kid's issue is before you even take them to the doctor. It's for those types of issues. And there's going to be a lot of times where, the doctor, is going to say, I'm sorry, there's nothing I can do for you, it's viral, go home and get some sleep. And so now you just saved that employee from having to drag themselves out or having to drag their children out and taking them there when they should just be at home in bed resting. And now they've got a doctor, an actual physician telling them, no, you need to rest, give this 2 or 3 days. If it still persists, then you can call us. And so it saves the plan money, obviously, because they're not paying for those visits that are maybe unnecessary. And then it saves the employee money because they're not paying their co-payment. And then you've got the ease of use. I mean, you can use this in your own home.
You're not missing your work,
office.
presenteeism.
You can't beat it, And experience-wise, we see groups anywhere from 20 to 40% utilization. It's going to be up to us working with HR to educate your employees. Generally, the first year out of the gate, it's a little slow, and then it kind of picks up from there. It's just going to depend on your population and how much, we push it to how much money will actually be saved. But I mean, on a group of this size, you could probably look at saving anywhere from $40,000 to $80,000 on doctor visits that, would have gone.
And there's getting to be more and more telemedicine companies out there, so we're constantly on the cutting edge. Maybe the vendor we work with now is the most advantageous, but maybe next year or 2 years down the road we make the switch. But we talk about managing healthcare costs. This is, we feel, a valuable piece to that puzzle to implement. Any questions on that? We'll keep moving so we don't take your time. We got a few more slides to go through really quickly. The next slide really quickly is a company. If you flip the slide over for me. Video Muno. We talk about a benefits video. We actually come in and we prepare. It's going to be no more work on your HR. We come in and prepare a benefit video, and you'll see up there's an example video. You can actually, you've got the okay from that company to utilize if you ever want to check it out. You can actually just type that in online and go in and view their benefit video. But it's great. You can critique it any way you want. And what we find is most valuable, because if employees can't make the meetings, or if it's an employee that comes to the meetings and their spouse actually takes care of the benefits and the children's needs at home, they can click on this and go through the benefit video. Talks about open enrollment. Like we said, we can customize it any way you see fit. So we think that's a valuable tool as well. I'm going to let AJ talk a little bit more about this next portion, because this is more on the cutting edge that we've built in an analytics system, and we've got it built in some of our groups, and he'll talk about some of the success that we've had with that.
Data Smart Solutions is actually a Levitt company that we work with, and what they do is, with your permission, of course, we'd have to get your permission to do this, is we would actually take all of your claims data and we plug it into this system. And what this system does is it runs it through a bunch of algorithms. And they've partnered with Johns Hopkins Hospital, and they feel like they can predict issues before they would show up on a normal blood test. And we're not allowed to talk about a lot of them because they're proprietary and they could obviously be stolen, but one they allow us to talk about is like your good cholesterol. Let's say your good cholesterol drops when you go to the doctor. Does your doctor do anything, think twice about it? You probably don't even have a discussion about it. What they found is, one of the precursors to cancer is your good cholesterol dropping. So they feel like they can actually pre-diagnose cancer 6 to 12 months before it would even show up in a white blood cell count or anything like that. So they would require additional screens, things like that. So what they do is, if you give us the permission and we become your brokers, we run your claims through this algorithm. As things pop up, we would be working with the insurance carrier and the physician, and we'd be requesting possible additional testing. I mean, on a group of this size, you might have 12 to 15 cases a year, 20 tops, and it's still at the employee's discretion whether or not they participate. They can say, no, I don't want to have any additional testing. But the goal here is to kind of catch things before they become the bigger issue. I mean, we all know you catch a cancer in its very, very early stages, it costs 10 to 20% of the cost, as opposed to catching it when it's stage 3 or stage 4. And so that's what this company does. The algorithm that they've developed actually comes in and helps control costs that way. And I think when you see, our experience with the City of Idaho Falls and some of our other groups, I think our renewal increases speak to the fact that we have been able to do that in a lot of our groups in similar size. So.
And this would be included in the package?
This is included.
Yeah, everything we're discussing today is included in our fee.
Yep.
Finally, really quick, FMLA. I won't go too much into that because Heather and Nicole really do have a good handle on this, but one of the values to this, it's like the HIPAA portion. It's $1 million hold harmless as well. So you have an FMLA breach, Basically, their attorney gets involved and they back you for up to $1 million. We have an FMLA issue. They also help you with the tracking on the FMLA, and it's something that we'd work more closely with Nicole and Heather. Along with FMLA, like we discussed, we'd be huge advocates for your employees as well. Currently, right now, I believe, I'm not 100% certain, but I believe the employees mostly go to Nicole and Heather for their issues, which it's not a HIPAA breach by any means if you have a privacy officer, but a lot of times we found that employees feel a lot more comfortable coming to a third party to discuss their personal health history, and they'll open up more, and it helps us to be able to help them, but then also we can get them set up with disease management type programs, medical management, not only to help manage your healthcare costs, but also to help them manage them as an employee as a valuable piece to the city of Pocatello as well. And we also just, an estimated transition timeline, we kind of just put in there if we took over your brokers, how we would implement, how we would come in. There's a strategic approach to this. What we'd do is we would set up a timeline like this, and we also set it up in a contract type format. So you know that we're vested in this. The way we see it is a partnership. We're investing in you as much as you're investing in us, and we understand that. And so the timeline, we always sign off, and we make sure our system actually sends out emails as each one of these timelines comes up. You can be as involved as you'd like to, or HR can be involved as they like to. You can essentially just send them an email that says, hey, on the timeline period, this has been completed, or they can follow completely through the process. So if we were to do a formal request for proposal, you could see the full formal request for proposal, everything that we're doing on it as we manage it with Idaho code. This is where we're at on it currently. So you don't have to question where they at on it, or have to get with HR, where are they at on it. You can see this is where they're at on the request for proposal for the benefits. And I know this is kind of backdated because we just threw this together as an example, but any questions for us? I know we just flew through and peppered you with all kinds of stuff.
Have you had a chance to look at our numbers just in a broad range of what we've done with increases, say, over the last 5 years and compared to what your clients have done?
No, we haven't been given that access to that data, so we haven't had a chance to look at that, so I apologize.
How large is your group?
The Levitt Group, or just our agency here?
The Levitt Group.
The Levitt Group is we're currently the 7th largest privately held in the nation. We were actually American Insurance Services prior to about 3 years ago, which we still are our own entity, but we have merged with the Levitt Group to get more of these resources. As healthcare reform and ACA has grown, we realized we need more of these resources. Our brokerage firm here in Southeast Idaho, we have the largest health membership in Southeast Idaho. We're one of the top 4 or 5 brokerages in Idaho, but we work closely with the Levitt Group nationwide with these types of programs, if that makes sense.
So that gives us the local presence as well as the national presence, because we were a local agency and they give us the independence to operate as a local agency, but then we also get to tap into all the resources that the big national firms do as well. And one thing that we're very proud of is we have the highest client retention in the state of Idaho. Once we partner with the client, they generally don't leave unless they dissolve. So, we're not out pounding on doors on a regular basis. Very seldom. We usually target maybe 1, maybe 2 groups a year, and that's all we really do. We're not looking to blow up and grow and double our size in 2 years. We're looking to pick up clients that want to partner for the long haul, and I think, our experience with our other groups speaks to that. And I think Nicole actually checked our references in that as well, and I think she got good reviews back from them. So.
Well, I hope you get a chance, or somehow we let you get access to that. Because one of the things that struck me from the get-go is you said that with City of Idaho Falls, you'd moved to Regents. And now, in fact, you were back with Blue Cross of Idaho there. I think that's who we were with, or were we with Regents or Blue Cross?
Blue Cross before this, yes.
And we were consistently seeing, I consider to be high double-digit increases. Now, your numbers are rather strikingly impressive.
Well, for example, the City of Idaho Falls last year, we were seeing those numbers as well, but they came in with a 16% increase, the City of Idaho Falls, and we were able to negotiate that down to a 3%. So your renewal isn't, in our opinion, the carrier will, definitely disagree with me on this. Your renewal isn't your renewal. We're going to work that, find that out, and part of, vetting that is we'll take that renewal and we'll go out to the other carriers like I spoke about earlier, and we'll see who's competitive out there in the market, if anyone wants to take a shot at it, and we leverage that against against the current carrier. Like, all right, Regents is competitive right now. They want another shot at this thing. Pacific Source is saying they'll buy the business. Either you get competitive and bring this renewal down, or we go outperform RFP. And we're able to do that and negotiate that. And that's actually kind of the fun part of our job, is to be able to negotiate that and beat that down. And we're pretty proud of the ability to do that. So when you get your increase, we see that as the starting point, and we've got our idea of what the finish line is. For example, City of Rexburg this last year, they were a 38% increase, and by the time we had it all said and done, it was 21%. Still a very, very large increase, very hard to manage, but a significant decrease. We almost cut that in half.
And that's where our actuaries and underwriters, who are former Blue Cross Blue Shield Association underwriters and actuaries, come into play, because us as brokers, we understand it to a point, but when they get down into the nitty-gritty, like the trend factors and things, it's great to sit all around the table and watch them go to work, because they speak the same language, and that's huge leverage for us, we believe. So,
especially if you can catch an error on their end. If one of their actuaries or underwriters makes an error, we can point that out. That always helps.
Yeah. So are you privy to Rexburg and Idaho Falls, what do they call them, incident or case numbers, or
Number of employees or increases?
No, number of claims.
Claims history.
Yeah, claims.
Yeah, I definitely have access to that. Absolutely.
And can you share that?
Not without their permission,
We'd have
sir.
to
I
talk to them,
apologize.
yeah, so-
It'd be just like if we were somewhere else meeting with another group, we couldn't share your information without their permission. I mean, I can give you round numbers, public information. Like the City of Idaho Falls spends about $10 million a year on their health benefits, but I can't give you,
Right,
actual
but how
things
many
on that.
employees they have?
They're at 600 right now. They have 600 full-time employees on the plan. So
Okay.
Cool.
Yes?
Tell us what benefits this would bring compared to where we're at currently.
So where we're at currently, Mercer is a great resource for our HR team, but they don't provide the resources and the tools for the employees. So what the Levitt Group is proposing is a point of contact for employees to reach out to kind of, if they don't feel comfortable talking to me or talking with Heather about their claim, or maybe it got billed incorrectly and they don't want me to know what they went to the doctor for. These guys are here for them as a resource and a tool, kind of as a third party in between, so they don't have to see me in the hallway and see, oh yeah, you know what treatment I'm getting. I'm a little embarrassed right now. So there's that aspect of it. The compliance aspect is huge. Most places charge you for COBRA administration. So we could get COBRA administration through Aetna or through Mercer, but we're going to pay a fee, a per employee per month fee, and that's included here. Which with the turnover we've seen recently, that COBRA administration piece is huge, especially with kids aging out of the system. So anyone who turns age 26, and that happens every month, they get COBRA paperwork, as well as our retirees, if they qualify COBRA-wise, and then anyone who resigns. So as that happens, that way it's getting sent out in a timely manner. They're probably more on top of it than I am. Honestly, I've got a million things going on in the office, and I have to make sure I get that sent out right on time. The Teladoc feature is a great feature that they offer for a $0 copay. So currently, the Aetna system just released their Teladoc piece, and you pay your copay to use the system. So as it was mentioned, the utilization drops if you have to pay for it. I mean, for any service or product, if you have to pay, you're not going to use it as much as if it were free. So there's that piece as well. The enrollment piece, I think, is also huge. I hold about 25 to 30 enrollment meetings during open enrollment. You guys usually see me once, but I do it for all of the employees. I go out to the departments, and that's just me. The Levitt Group has an enrollment team, so it would be more than just me going out, assisting employees, giving them advice on what they should or shouldn't be enrolling in, and helping manage that. So I think communication is the biggest piece that they would help us with. Did I miss anything? There's a lot of really great pieces that the Levitt Group offers that we're currently not seeing with the Mercer Group. The Mercer Group does an amazing job helping and assist me and helping, as I mentioned, the HR team with renewals and contracts and things like that. But on the employee side, employees aren't seeing that benefit.
So we're still expecting a $35,000 contract fee? Is that what we're,
The Mercer increase, we were at $20,000 prior, and they increased theirs this year to 25. The Levitt Group is proposing 42, and about $7.80 per employee per month is what that comes down to. The additional services, I think that's a fair fee.
And for example, like, when you have claims issues and things like that, just to give an example what Travis dealt with recently, we had an employee for the city of Idaho Falls actually, and this was just really recent within the last few weeks, and the employee actually went to the mayor and said thank you, but they actually got hit with an $8,000 charge, got hit with out-of-network fees and stuff, and if it's a big charge, Travis and I will definitely get involved personally in that, and we know how to work the system in that. And Travis got involved in that and got that $8,000 claim that the employees need a balance billed for down to $300. And they'd done everything they could. They'd called the insurance carrier, they'd gone to HR, they'd done everything. And normally he said he would have come to us first, but he's like, I didn't know what you guys could do in this situation. So then as a last resort, he came to us and we were able to, bring that down. So what is that, what's the value of that to an employee when you can do something like that? So.
Roger. Do you use other tools like Arviva? Do you use that to incentivize and leverage?
HR Vivas, yeah. We used those for years. In fact, years ago, we worked with the city of Pocatello at the beginning on that HR
Okay.
We're the ones that brought it here with Kim and Mike
Dersh.
Yeah.
So, because that seems like another tool in our toolbox, so to speak.
Oh, absolutely.
Correct. Yep. That consumer-driven health plans, we do tons of those. HRAs, HSAs, all those. Yep.
You guys have done a good job with your wellness and things like that. You're definitely on the right path. So.
I have a couple of questions. So you use a lot with Blue Cross right now, you said, in a lot of places, and with Regents you worked with them. Have you had much interaction with Aetna? Do they usually compete, or how does that?
We've used them outside of the state. They've been extremely competitive outside of the state of Idaho. So if we've had contracts outside of the state of Idaho, we are contracted with Aetna. We have worked with them in United Healthcare, but I know recently they are getting more competitive, but as of history, they really kind of the Blues or Pacific Sources and the Select Healths have been more competitive than Aetna. But yeah, we do have a working relationship and a contract there.
We have had a lot of self-insured groups through Aetna, which is Meritain, their TPA side. We've had several groups self-insured through there. We've probably done more self-insured business with Aetna than we have the fully insured. So.
Okay, thank you. And then I might have been confused earlier. Did you say that Idaho Falls, theirs went up 3%, but on your slide 4 it said
That was
0?
the year prior. This year's 0, last year was 3. Yeah, correct. Yep.
Their renewal effective 10/1 is a 0. And last year, the renewal effective 10/1 was a 2.98 or something.
Okay.
3. So.
Any other questions?
well, I know that when we went through this process, it was far and above the best presentation and overall package, but we decided that it would be best to bring our current contract, this contract, and then another one to contrast, so that there could at least have some discussion so you could see the differences. But it's because we thought it would be a little bit like telling you what the team decided, this is where we're going, instead of having the council decide. But I guess we could have saved a month by not having it on the last session, having this on the last session instead of the 3 comparisons. But this is, to me, this was far and above all of the others and goes beyond where we're at by miles.
I would agree, and I think the difference in cost is really extremely low based on what I think they can do for us. That's my impression.
Yeah.
And I think the Teladoc thing has an extraordinary value if you help us approach it right.
Yes,
Yeah,
100%. That's exactly right.
We're becoming I don't know how other towns are, but we're becoming a doc in the box response. I mean, it's just too, it's so easy and it's so complicated to get into other doctors sometime, and that cost over and over and over again. I see a real value to the teleconference. I mean, I agree. I think it has an incredible savings for us.
I think it's a huge benefit to your employees too, because of the time that saves them. Like I talked about when you got kids or even yourself, 9 times out of 10 you know what it is. And then I mean, let's be honest, you guys are very busy on a daily basis. And
Right.
how often do you let a sinus infection go or a cold or a sore throat till the very end? Whereas if you had access to something like this and you can take care of it in a few minutes, you might be more apt to do that. You're usually probably dragging yourself in at the last minute as opposed to maybe taking care of it when it first gets started, so.
And I equate it to my history in EMS. I worked in EMS for a lot of years. Was in the ER a lot, spent a lot of time in the ER. We had that ability as first responders and that, to have that same kind of teledoc with the ER docs. If you had if you had something going on, you had a child that had something going on, you could do that process. And that saved everybody a lot of money.
Well, and time too,
that.
you know?
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
And the other piece I want to touch on is currently the Teladoc system covers dermatology consults as well, and currently a dermatologist falls under a specialist, which is a $50 copay. So if you compare that, if you're going and seeing a dermatologist regularly or you need to follow up, that's $50 each time you're going in, where this would cover it for free. I mean, it wouldn't cover ongoing treatments where you would need to long-term see a dermatologist, but for those one-offs where you might let a rash go a little bit longer than you should because you don't want to pay that $50, it could help a lot.
And just to put your mind at ease as well, like they cannot prescribe psychotropic drugs, so you wouldn't have to worry about drug abuse on there. They can't prescribe painkillers, sleep medications, anti-anxiety, antidepressants. That would still have to go through the primary care physician or a doc in the box, so you don't have to worry about abuse on that side of it. That's usually
It's not
concerned.
made to take over your maintenance care with your doctor, just the acute issues. Yeah, so.
Great.
Sounds good. Any other questions? Super, thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you
Appreciate
for your time.
Thank you. We will move on then to agenda item number 3, which is the Golf Advisory Committee update. Representatives from the Golf Advisory Committee will discuss the committee's goals and projects as well as council's policies and expectations.
This is particularly families and stuff. You're not alone, are you?
I'm feeling a little lonely up here.
He's coming.
Nope, it looks like he's coming right now.
I'd rather be on the first tee.
I'll bet you.
We would all rather be on the
Yes,
first.
sir.
I'll pass these out when you get going. Okay.
I don't see Harold, so I'll cover this.
Probably on his way. Okay.
Well, I'd like to thank you for taking this time to hear from the Golf Advisory Committee. My name is Larry Morton. I'm the current chair of the committee. Our committee is made up of Vice Chair Ginger Smith, High River Women's Rep Joyce Fleming, Greg Albright from 4 Golf, Roger Musser from the High River Men's Association, at-large members Thomas Little and Billy Satterfield. Additionally, 4 Golf representatives Gerald Myler and Brian Sprague. I'd also like to recognize past members for their long-term commitment, Louise Bollinger, Ron Dunn, and Glenn Lattin, who served on this committee for many years. Also, I'd like to thank Councilman Moore for, he is our council liaison and has been very active in our committee participating. Also, I'd like to thank Parks and Rec staff, Director John Banks and his staff for their continued support and actions that they've taken to support our committee. The committee's been very active in its efforts to not only improve the appearance and condition of golf courses, but also to improve the quality of the golfing experience for the public, as well as working to increase play at both courses. I'd like to thank on behalf of the board, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank you, Mr. Mayor, and the council for your support in the past and the current fiscal year, particularly your approval of appropriations for continued cart path repairs and replacements at both clubhouses, refurbishing and repainting the Highland Clubhouse. In the past few years, with the support of the council, we've been able to start with cart path renovations and replacements. We've replaced the flooring in both clubhouses. New restroom buildings at both courses. These are on-course restrooms, 2 at Highland and 1 in addition to the one that was already at Riverside. A great amenity, according to most of the players. We've replaced air conditioning units at both clubhouses. extensive tree pruning at Highland last year and some at Riverside, but both sides at Highland the trees have been cleaned up. We've assisted in plumbing repairs, electrical repairs at both clubhouses, planted 14 new evergreens at Riverside. There's been bunker reconstruction at both golf courses, as well as a couple of greens have been reconstructed up at Highland Golf Course. There's one at Riverside that will be done this year, will be rebuilt this year. There's a nursery green at Riverside and a new maintenance shop up at Highland, which has ended up being very nice for the maintenance staff. In way of a play report, for the 2016 season, there were 56,921 rounds of golf played. 39,347 were season pass holder rounds. 17,574 were daily fee rounds. That's down from 6,271 rounds played in 2015. Season pass holders account for approximately 69% of the total rounds played in 2016, with daily fee rounds about 31%. 2016 total season passes were 792 versus 842 in 2015. The golf courses opened for play in 2016 on February 25th, and in 2015 they were open on February 7th. Due to weather conditions, we were much later this year, so we have a play between March and May through May of 2017. Riverside opened on March 17th. Highland opened on the 1st of March, but there were no significant rounds played until the 17th. Too much snow. Again, we opened on February 25th, so nearly a month earlier in 2016. From March 17th through May of 2017, there are 3,526 daily rounds played, 11,318 pass holder rounds. I think that first number must be a little wrong. 1,484 total rounds. 569 total passes sold so far this year. Both courses also provide extensive support for high school golf as well as ISU golf teams for no cost. They practice and play matches on the golf courses from March through May. I don't see Gerald here, so I'll briefly go over strategies for increased play. This is 4Golf's plan for increased play as they ran it also through the committee. Play Golf in America. The PGA's Golf America program this year includes the following. Welcome to golf program throughout the year, tee it forward throughout the year, which has been a real success. Play the tees that are fun for you to play instead of the tortures. They have kids range days, family golf days, Patriot golf days, and PGA Junior League days. We have a men's association, men's league on Thursday evenings, women's league. The ladies participate in various formats on Tuesdays at Highland and on Thursdays at Riverside. Lady Niners Wednesday league, 4, 9, and 18 hole alternative to regular women's league. They rotate between the golf courses. There's some instruction involved, and it only costs them $5 to attend. Ladies Evening League on Tuesday night. We have a couples league on Wednesday evening. Junior league play, I believe, just started today. Senior league has been very active. Play every Monday, alternate golf courses. Plus, there's also the Snake River Seniors, which is we play at various courses around the area: Idaho Falls, American Falls, I don't think American Falls, Blackfoot, Idaho Falls, Burley, I believe they play. 4 Golf supports tournaments, and they've been doing a very good job with local tournaments, amateur tournaments for men and women, as well as pro-ams. Okay, we've got a list of all the tournaments, and it's long and extensive. I won't trouble you with that. They're creating a new and enhanced website, as we've learned that most people now are finding golf courses on the internet. So they're updating and rebuilding a website. Posters and flyers announcing events at both clubhouses, sent out to other golf course areas, direct mailings for the largest tournaments. They're advertising in the Parks and Recreation pamphlet, IGA, Idaho Golf Association tournament schedules, a Facebook page where we can see our tee times and that kind of thing. Online tee times are available now. They have a program for Men's Association High River Player of the Year, which is accumulation of points throughout the tournament schedules. They support the High River Cup, which is teams from Riverside, team from Highland, and they play a format similar to the big match play events that the PGA Tour plays. There's a pass referral program. These are new things they're doing. A 7-Eleven special through Sunday through Thursday, 4 holes for $7 or $11 with a card. So if you don't have time to go out and play a full round of golf and you want to get out and swing during your lunch hour, you can go play 4 holes. Real inexpensive. They advertise the Rocky Mountain Section Players Pass, 2-for-1 discounts. Pass referral program, they're offering a bonus if you refer somebody and they buy a pass. Family pass holder discounts, significant decreases in junior passes, adult and couples passes. A restricted junior pass, $75 juniors can purchase a pass that allows them to begin play between 12:30 and 3 o'clock on weekdays. Typically a real slow time on the golf courses. Discount cards, 2-for-1 discount, purchase of a card. Email promotions or emailing, they have a full list of email. So they are doing what they can to increase play at both golf courses. At the beginning of this meeting, you provided a graph that summarizes the revenues and expenditures in the golf course fund over the past 5 fiscal years. As you can see from that table, Golf in Pocatello has contributed nearly $420,000 to the recreation fund. We're in a unique situation. Other municipalities around the area don't get that kind of a profit off the golf courses. They struggle to stay even for the year. Most still operate in the red. We actually contribute to the Parks Fund and therefore the city budget quite a bit of money actually. And the golfers are proud of that. We're proud to support Parks and Rec. We also are aware that there are things on the golf courses that need attention. So that brings me to our future plans. The following addresses some of our future plans for the golf course needs. First, committee members are aware that the city continues to face some difficult decisions regarding fiscal year 18 budget. As you know, there are requests for capital funding in the golf fund budget in the amount of $40,000 for continued cart path renovations, replacement and routings, and also $20,000 for continued clubhouse renovations. remodeling, improvements, updates. And we would respectfully ask for your favorable consideration for these budget needs. Second, the committee would like to point out the continued need for long-term planning and capital funding for these community assets, specifically in 2 areas. First is a biggie, clubhouse replacements. Our clubhouses are vastly inferior to those around us. The clubhouse at Riverside is 100 years old. It was a hay barn. There's still hay in the loft, by the way. The electrical, the plumbing, there are many problems. Handicapped access is a problem. These amenities are assets to the community. When we bring people in looking to bring a new business to town, they want to know, are our schools good? What are the recreational possibilities? And the golf courses have been a real asset to the city, and they continue to be. They're in good shape, but our clubhouses need to be replaced. We've been able to get an architect to do some drawings for us. And John, I believe you have a rendering.
Yeah, I invite the council to these. I'm sorry we didn't have time. These are literally hot off the presses right before the meeting. We had a local architect who volunteered, but I encourage the council to kind of open those up and see some of the possibilities. There's an elevation photo in there, color, and then a floor plan just to pass around. We didn't have time. I was
going to do this as a working lunch, so we didn't take some time here.
But anyway, just to pass around, but it's kind of exciting, some of the possibilities. We're trying to center in on being, not overly extravagant, just practical, a building that just meets our needs, or the golf course needs well, and with every effort made to kind of be practical and keep the costs down. So these are kind of the initial stab with golf committee input and the efforts of a local architect for no cost.
Both locations are just...
We're centering on Riverside first. That's the oldest and in most dire need. The Highland Clubhouse, we think, would be significantly more expensive just because of the size and the possibilities over there, which I guess makes it significantly more unrealistic in the short term. So we're proposing, council's been nice enough to grant us some funds to repaint that clubhouse, and we're going to do some cosmetic improvements and kind of keep it going along and making it as nice as we can, for the foreseeable future, and try to concentrate on the Riverside Clubhouse first.
If you were to take that $419,157 that we've gained in the last 5 years and put it strictly to this, it would have made a difference?
It's a significant difference.
Yeah, absolutely.
This particular design, that a rough cost estimate is around $500,000. A lot of money, but prices will go up as we wait too. The plan at Riverside is a single level. And again, as John said, it's not extravagant, it's not real fancy, but it's very usable, and it gives us a lot of usable space outside, patio space, that sort of thing. Increased car storage parking and increased parking lot size due to the location of it, and it gives the pro shop a better view of the first and 9th tee box, 10th tee boxes. So it's a practical application. Excuse me, we think that Highland has possibilities to be a multi-use facility, so we'll be looking more into that later, but again, that'll be significantly more expensive if we were to do that. It's a beautiful setting up there. There's possibility for meetings, weddings, all kinds of things. It really is a pretty place, pretty views. This again is approximately $500,000 to build the Riverside Clubhouse. So what we would like to see is a portion of the yearly revenues set aside and earmarked specifically in a capital improvement fund, specifically for clubhouse repairs. We also are proposing some fundraisers, possibility of some grant money, some sponsorship money perhaps. We're looking at any way we can to gain funding for this project. We really do feel like it's time, and we're quite a bit behind other places. We've got beautiful golf courses, so we need reasonable facilities. Mr. Mayor, I've seen you at the clubhouses. You know what it's like trying to get through there. It can be better. We'd also like to set aside any budget resources that aren't specifically used. Again, if we've got $40,000 for car path replacement and we don't need to use all of that, we'd like to set that into that fund. So we're asking that the council would create a specific fund for these clubhouse replacements. The other long-term problem is going to be irrigation systems. Highland Riverside irrigation infrastructure, delivery pipe and wiring have been in place since 1987. That's 29 years ago, and the early 1990s at Highland. The concessionaire and the city are managing breakage and wear issues, and the systems are performing well for their age. However, due to irrigation system life expectancy estimates of approximately 25 to 30 years, and this is per the land group who developed the systems, it's recommended that the city consider beginning to prepare for these eventual long-term needs. The irrigation control system is fairly new at Highland, 2014, Riverside 2005. Both systems are currently working well and in good shape, but their average life expectancy is 10 to 15 years. So we'll be coming on those problems before long also. As I stated earlier, we consider the golf courses as a significant asset to the city and believe that they provide quality recreation and have a highly positive economic impact on the Parks and Rec Department. In conclusion, on behalf of myself and the other members of the Golf Advisory Board and the committee, I would again like to thank you, Mayor Blatt, and council members for your continued support of golf in Pocatello. We have two excellent golf courses, and the city staff for golf care deeply about the golf courses and the players. Our intent as a Golf Advisory Committee members is to always work to strive to improve the courses, their playing conditions, and the associated amenities. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to.
We've got one right here.
What do you anticipate the cost would be to do the irrigation systems?
We haven't explored that too much, but I'd say upwards of a couple $100,000, I would imagine.
I don't know what they cost when they put them in, but it will be significantly more to repair and replace. Some of the delivery pipe has longer lifespan, but sprinkler heads and the smaller pipe and that sort of thing. We have a continuing problem at Riverside that we're trying to address with water hammer issues. It breaks pipes. It blows heads right out of the ground. We're working on that issue as we speak. But it'll be a significant amount to replace the irrigation systems.
It looks to me like the plan needs to be balanced, because it'd be great to have a clubhouse, but if you can't water the golf course, it's kind of a moot point. So to me, it'd be real important for us to know the costs so that we can balance those together.
And we can get a cost estimate from, I believe the gentleman's name's Greg Bear at the Land Group Incorporated. That's who did the sprinkler system at Highland. I'm not sure if they did the one at Riverside, but we can get a cost estimate.
Well, with your references, it looks like we're this year we go past the maximum, which you said 30 years with Riverside, and we're going to hit the maximum at Highland on the lifespan of those systems.
Well, it's not that they're not working, they become more and more problematic and more repairs. We continue to limp them along, and we understand that it's a chunk of change to come up with. We feel like there needs to be a plan where we start socking it away a little bit, so when we can no longer repair, at least we have something to go to.
And realistically, we can probably do repairs for a number of years still, and not have to deal with complete replacement for a while. I think the committee's priority at this point in time is getting a fund set up to work on clubhouse replacements. One of our members said, it may not be in my lifetime, but I'd like my name on it.
Well, I just want to make sure that you're aware that Councilman Moore will have much more time to dedicate to the golf courses here soon.
And yes, that's hard to fathom. I know it's hard to play
How are you
so much
enjoying the
golf, right?
amenities at the golf course you play?
Yeah. Well, I want to mention about the clubhouse thing. It's a need, and what we'd hoped to accomplish this year, we've done. We've got a conceptual drawing. We've got a ballpark idea on the money. That gives us somewhere really to go with that, rather than year after year say we need a new clubhouse. Now we know what it's going to look like somewhat. We can show people that, and we know it's going to be in the $500,000 ballpark. So I think that gives us some good solid ground to move forward and try to get this accomplished in the next couple of years. That would be my hope. We know what we're looking for now, at least. So.
And if we have a fund dedicated to that and a place to put monies, then we can pursue other fundraising opportunities. Again, sponsorships are possible. There may be some grant money out there. We're talking about a fundraiser golf tournament, and they're pretty viable. We just, a friend of ours is in final stages of cancer. We just had a little fundraiser Thursday night. Men's League raised more than $2,000 to support a friend. We can raise some money. The golfers want these amenities. They're willing to contribute. It's a benefit to the city. It's the city's property. So the city has to be willing to participate in it also.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
Well, I have one more. You said there were 500 and some annual fees paid this year, and it was 800 and some the year before, and then 900 and some. Why do you attribute such a decline?
One of the things that hasn't factored in yet is July 1st, they sell a half-season pass at a much reduced rate. So there will be a number of passes sold after the 1st of July that will add into that figure. But golf across America number of rounds played is coming down a bit. We're looking at a lot of ways to try and increase rounds played. The significant fewer number of rounds played this year is because we were more than a month later than 2015 and nearly a month later than 2016, just due to weather. So naturally, there's going to be fewer rounds played at this point in the year.
Works the same way with our swimming pool. When it's 100 degrees, business is really good.
Yep.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
Thank you for your
Thank you
time.
very much.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate it. We'll move on to agenda item number 4, Parks and Recreation Advisory Board update. Representatives from the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board will discuss the board's goals and projects as well as council policy and expectations.
Yeah, I got a copy here. Good morning. My name is Doug Melder, Chairman of the Park and Recreation Advisory Committee. I'm happy to be here and have the opportunity to present the annual report for the Park and Recreation Advisory Board. Just to start, I want to introduce our members of the board. Vice Chair Larry Morton, who just spoke, did you leave? Oh, he must have a tea time. Judy Taylor, Kay Corbridge, who's here? Okay.
I'm here.
Right there. David Doran, Darren Black, Frederick Belzer, who was here also in the back. Daniel Parrish, Dakota Bates, And Bart Reed. Bart Reed represents school district number 25. We did have one member who left the committee this year, and his name was Mike Stanley. His term ended a couple months ago. He'd been on the board for quite a few years. We'd like to thank Councilmember Heidi Adamson for her involvement and support and attendance, except for the last meeting.
I know, I was here.
You were there in spirit. For supporting us at their meetings. Park and Rec Board meets 6 times a year, once every other month. The months of February, April, June, August, and October. We just had our June meeting. We meet on the first Thursday of each month, unless, of course, there's complications. We adjust that day, but it is still every other month. They're quite lengthy meetings. They stretch many times for 2 hours. Sometimes I feel we should go monthly instead of every other month. We had this past year, we welcomed 2 new members, and that's Fred Belzer and Dakota Bates. Fred was appointed in July, and Dakota was appointed in 2017. We reappointed 4 members, myself, Daniel Parrish, Bart Reed, and Dave Doran. So it is a real consistent group. People stay on for a lot of years, of course, unless their terms expire and they're unable to be reappointed sometimes. So it's good to have that consistency among the advisory board. Continuing, I'd like to present some of the key issues, topics that the board has considered since our last presentation last June of 2016. Number 1 would be the Reflection Garden project at Caldwell Park, which is currently being constructed. I have not been over there to see how that's looking, but John assures me that we've cut down some trees, huh?
We've cut down some trees.
Well, yeah, we haven't heard about that yet, have we?
Yeah, we heard a little. We're replacing them with 6 new ones, though.
Okay. Some little ones. With the Play Often, Live Better campaign, Parks prescriptions campaign in conjunction with Portneuf Health Trust and Medical Center. That's highlighted in the summer Park and Rec book. Have you all seen the summer Park and Recreation book?
Yes.
Okay, very good. Trail Exploration Wednesdays. This is brand new. That's also it's also in the spring and summer book. This works with the Portneuf Greenway and also Portneuf Health Trust. Park and Recreation has been involved with the Portneuf River Visioning Study process. Been involved with the new Zoo Idaho entrance and gift shop building, and of course, we had the Zoo Idaho. Has that been over a year? Been named Zoo Idaho? Was that
just about a year.
Just about a year. Of course, new name for the zoo, Zoo Idaho. Another new thing, and then we've seen in the last couple of meetings, is an adjustment in the transit system so that we can partnership with the city transit system to easily bring youth and people to Lower Ross Park for some of our summer activities in the swimming pool area, zoo area. Annual Parks and Recreation service level and budget reports, proposed department fee resolutions, those are always discussed at Park and Rec Board. Annual facility use and concession agreements are always shown and are discussed. We also discuss and have a presentation from Larry concerning golf course operations and issues that arise. Big one last meeting was dogs in the park. I thought we spent more than the amount of time we should have on that issue. Excuse me. And then also at every regular meeting, John presents with us for all the programs, services, activities in the Park Recreation Department for the previous 2 months, along with his director's reports. And that always shows a continued high level of participation in city recreational programs, entrances to the recreation center, use of the aquatic center and such. I think even this year we're ahead of things on our expenditures and revenues. Another big project that John's been working a lot on is the development of comprehensive Park and Rec Department facility use programs policy document. to include all rules and regulations and in standard legal department use agreement language. Like I say, John's put in a lot of time on this and shared it with the Park and Recreation Advisory Board. We make some adjustments to that. But the purpose of this, the goal is to develop a streamlined facility use reservation system for park users and staff, where Park and Recreation staff can approve and administratively issue facility use permits and reference all terms and conditions of facilities use policy document. I know that what he is changing and is updating it has been a very antiquated document before he started working on it, and we're bringing it up into two levels we see in many other cities and issues. I mean, it's the last meeting I talked to John about the language we had in the document concerning inflatables in parks, and that's what I see as a big liability issue a lot of communities are dealing with. Not only events that they sponsor, but when they rent the facility to somebody that brings in inflatables and they're not properly monitored, and there's a lot of injuries that are involved with those. We look forward to bringing a final draft of this document to the City Council for consideration prior to the end of this year. Is that correct?
That is correct.
I want to thank everyone on behalf of the Park and Recreation Department staff, thank the Mayor Blatt and the council members for continued strong support of the Park and Recreation Department. The board realizes the financial constraints that the city is facing and is also very appreciative of the council's continued commitments that Park and Recreation has been able to accomplish in the past year to provide valuable services. And these are some of the most important facilities and services for most of the community. The advisory board will continue to work together closely to improve the community's quality of life and health, to provide outstanding, did you write that, outstanding?
Absolutely.
Parks and recreation programs and services for the city of Pocatello. I would also personally like to thank Director John Banks and his staff for doing an incredibly professional and valuable job for this good city service that we have. Thank you. Questions? Jim always has a good one.
As a committee chairman,
yes,
what can we do to get more involvement from our community in this valuable resource that we have? I mean,
well, I deal with that same thing in my job at the university, is how do we reach out to people? And more and more we have to do it with things like Facebook and a lot of the social media areas that students, that younger folks are going to, not old guys like us, but that's how they get all their news. That's how they get to everything. That's important. We just can't, on the campus, we just can't slap up a flyer on a bulletin board and expect people to read it.
What percentage of our population really uses this valuable resource, the parks and other facilities?
Well, of course, 100%. You asked me that same question last year.
I did.
Yes, you did. I have to say, most of the recreation we hear in the city of Pocatello is outdoors. We have very little indoor recreation. We have a small recreation center, but with our ball fields and our parks and our pools and, of course, our golf courses and things, most of it's outdoors. And, of course, the things that we do with the cemetery and Pocatello Junction and the replica and our, and our medians and everything we do, it's all outdoors. And even if you didn't use a park, how would you like to live in a city without a park? And how would you like to drive down a median and not see some flowers or something that Park and Rec Department is planning and maintaining and things? So it affects all portions of the community, all people at all times, but in some more actively than others. But it's part of the beautification of your city, and that's what that's why people want to live here.
Mr. Johnson, can I comment on those couple questions as well? I think parks especially kind of our park system where it's, free of charge to all residents to come out at any time and enjoy. I think it has the potential to touch every community member in that regard. I know at the Community Rec Center, we routinely have 135, 140,000 participant occurrences at that facility. Our Ross Park Aquatics Complex is 35 and 40 1,000 participant occurrences. The zoo, another 25 to 30,000. The golf courses are heavily used, 750 to 800 pass holders a year, 65,000, 70,000 rounds a year. So fun runs, very popular, 700 to 900, even 1,000 participants each run. So full swim lessons. I mean, we're touching. It's hard to quantify, but I think we're touching a great percentage of the community. And I think our facilities have the ability to touch everybody in the community in that regard. And then in regards to publicity as well, actually Councilwoman Adamson and I have had a couple of discussions about this. We're always looking for, I guess, new ways to get our message out and get our services out and let people know. And since I've been here, Bart Reed actually sits with us on our Parks and Rec Advisory Board. I've kind of felt that maybe I can do, or Parks and Rec can do a little bit better job in working with the school district, seeing as how we serve the same demographic to get each other's message out. Maybe that hasn't happened to the degree that would be that I'd be satisfied with anyway prior to me arriving. So we have reached out to the school district and got a verbal commitment. This was actually just last Thursday, to kind of share each other's key information on each other's Facebook pages, and also allow the school district the opportunity to kind of get their key, registration dates or Head Start program dates out in front of all those people showing up at the rec center that are bringing all those young ones in there, reaching that demographic. So I think we're in the works of trying to get creative and use each other, being that we serve the same demographic. And I just feel like the city and the school district should enjoy maybe a special relationship together that other entities might not. So we're pursuing that and going down that road.
My follow-up would be, what impact has the wellness complex had in terms of utilization of our facilities and programs?
Oh, wow. That's, of course, a whole separate entity, Portland Health Trust and, in a way, county facilities. I don't know. I think that it's provided people with other types of activities. I don't know that, John, you haven't been using those facilities there for any of your soccer leagues or anything?
No.
Nothing?
We've teamed up on a couple of occasions with Portland Health Trust for the trail exploration program, and also the park prescriptions program. It's kind of, we don't have a lake facility or a concert facility per se, so I think kind of different, although we do have soccer fields, they're maybe not maintained to the really high tournament competitive levels at the wellness facility. So I think they're attracting maybe different users, but I don't think it's taking away from the enjoyment of our facilities. It's just different. It's a different experience.
They do add some recreation opportunities within the city that the city doesn't offer. With some of the trails and the little bike trails inside the park and rec and the amphitheater, and of course the opportunity with the lake and such.
My perception would be it's an enhancement, and we're going to have a healthier community because of the expansion.
Oh, yeah.
But you haven't mentioned pickleball.
Well, it'll be healthier community. It'll eventually sell more houses.
You got a half hour. I can go for a half hour on pickleball if you got time.
Yeah, pickleball. Well, that's something. Yes, exactly.
That's a real popular event. Doug and I both work with the senior games, and it's always jam packed. We have last summer we dual striped our tennis courts out at Raymond Park to accommodate 4 full-size pickleball courts. The new flooring over at the Community Rec Center, we did a pickleball overlay on that court, and we've also done overlays on the 2 racquetball courts to try and accommodate that need. The problem there is that you're kind of dealing with the space that you have, and then unfortunately they're not full size, but we still get a kind of a good group of regulars that come in and use that, and a pretty darn substantial group that use the Raymond courts. So.
I do want to say too, and I've mentioned this earlier, is that something we haven't really talked about is the MEC building too. I was up there on Tuesday. I couldn't believe the number of pickleball players they had playing in Tuesday morning at the MEC, and I think that just like the Port Neufeld Trust facility, I think you really need to take a global view of all opportunities in the city for participants and people. And you don't have to necessarily replicate what other people do, and then you can know where to focus with this group on where the needs aren't being met. And I do know that they've offered some real good pickleball opportunity up there, and they have some open basketball times for kids, and so it's, we've had those are 2 major facilities that have been opened in the last couple of years that have really enhanced recreation, enhanced things near Pocatello. You're right.
Roger.
Yes, Roger.
The golf committee just presented. What would it do to your budget if we took all the funds that the golf committee the golf group generates and let it pay for golfing?
We are not at the 3-month level for recreation fund balance, particularly with the switch from general fund to the recreation fund with the zoo operations budget. I think taking all of it would be quite a thing to absorb. I do think it's reasonable, however, maybe to take a small portion of it. I'm just spitball, $20,000 a year out of the 100 plus that they bring in, maybe can be set aside for an earmark specifically for long-term golf capital improvements, and absolutely not used for any other purpose. But you have to weigh it, because if it's kind of a rob Peter to pay Paul type of thing, it's a concern.
From what was presented, we've spent $377,000 in the last 5 years for the golf courses, but they've generated a $419,000 more that went back in.
Correct.
To Parks and Recreation. So are you saying just take 20,000?
I think the golfers understand that it is a city amenity, and revenues generated from that city amenity help to support the recreation department as a whole. We do have a $30 per season pass CIP fee that is kind of tacked on to each membership. I'm thinking it's probably pretty reasonable to earmark that CIP fee and dump it into a separate account, and that's how I came up with the roughly $20,000 a year figure.
So how do we build 2 clubhouses and irrigate 2 golf courses at $20,000 a year in the next 20 years?
I think we're just well aware of all of the different things that are pulling at council and the limited resources. I think the onus is on staff, and also on for golf and the golf community to get creative and beat the bushes for potential grant funding. Maybe somebody might get excited with the depiction of the clubhouse that we have. We're planning on putting that up over at Riverside and trying to generate some excitement, seeking donations and having fundraising tournaments and the like. I don't think there's an expectation of the city floating the whole bill, but just being a partner in it. But we realize it's unrealistic to sit back and rely on the city for these types of asks. It's just the resources aren't there. We're going to also have to do our part. That's kind of the train of thought.
And I agree, and I think the golf community understands that as well. It's going to take it from both sides. When you look at the zoo, you look at the Zoological Society and everything that they do, it can be done through other resources. And I agree with you, setting that money aside. having a plan, we're on track for something now. As we've talked over the last couple of years, we really weren't sure what we were on track with, and I think we're headed in the right direction with this.
And then, you know, you sock it away, and at some point, the plan meets the resources, and off we go. But it's a starting point, and we realize that we've got a little way, a ways to go, but we would love to get started with some level of support from a reasonable level of support from the city as well.
I think to follow up on that, you got to see what you're committed to do in the city. You committed to having golf courses? You know, I know Larry brought it up. You asked him, rounds of golf are decreasing. But it wasn't that many years ago, rounds of golf were booming. Golf becomes cyclic many times by who people follow. You know, it's the Tiger Woods phenomenon sometimes, and that's the way it goes with tennis too. So you know, you don't want to say, well, it's decreasing, so let's disregard the condition of our facilities, because then they'll erode away to something that's horrible. So you know, if you're committed to it in the future, it'll come back and it'll be big again. It'll start increasing. Same way, and the city's lucky to have a golf course that's running in the black. Many city-owned courses run in the red, and so do outdoor pools. You know, they have shorter seasons, you just don't use them year-round, and so you got to make hay when you can, and sometimes it's affected by weather. And then sometimes, like, you know, for golf, it's affected by interest at this very point, but it sometimes can be up and down. So you got to, you know, decide what you're committed to do and what committed to maintaining. Does that make any sense? Okay.
Sure. Yeah. Any other questions, Council?
Good job. Thanks.
Super. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
We take a couple of minutes.
Why don't we take a couple-minute break, and then we'll come back to agenda item number 5.
Okay.
Thank you for joining us after the break. We'll go ahead and get started again. We will jump into the agenda item number 5 is Bannock Development Corporation update. John Regetz, Bannock Development Corporation Executive Director, will be present to give council an update of their activities and achievements. John, how are you?
Great, Mr. Mayor. How are you doing today? Members of the council? With me here is Brandon Lance. He's our acting chairman today in the absence of Chairman Rasmussen. And also with us today, Travis Woolsey from the Iron Workers, Mary Johnson with McDonald's, and Matt Hunter with the Chamber of Commerce. And thank you for giving us a few minutes to tell you a little bit about what we do and been up to the last year since we last met. First of all, thank you for the support that you've given us over the years. Without your support, the work that we do wouldn't be possible. And with you, some other collaborators help out. Economic development is a team sport, and people probably don't appreciate me saying that all the time, but it really, really is. These are all the people, all the agencies and entities that we work with. Of course, the city of Pocatello being one of those lead agencies throughout the community and throughout all of eastern Idaho, and even with state level organizations like the Department of Labor and the Department of Commerce with Idaho. And you know, we not only work on trying to recruit companies, but we work on the capacities and the infrastructure that's needed to recruit those, such as workforce and infrastructure and investment in land. Our focus, of course, is on primary employment as an economic development organization, and this is a Arlen Wittrock slide, and so I only add to it a little bit. Those are the higher paying jobs to most folks, and those are the jobs that fuel the other entities and other business sectors in the community, such as retail, stores and restaurants, as a result of those primary jobs coming into the communities. And so, like the PDA and the CDA, they help facilitate retail development by helping with infrastructure and other assistance like that. But typically we can help with some business functions, but we typically don't market to retail.
Question on backslides. higher wages. What do we define and determine as a higher wage?
I think we'd take a look at the sectors that you're looking at. We typically aren't looking at, retail industry typically has lower wages than manufacturing. So we tell employers that we would like to see $15 an hour for them to be competitive. Now, they're going to participate in the market as it is, and so they're going to identify wages that they can operate at. If you take a look at that $15 an hour range, actually $16 meets all the incentive programs that are out there. So we advise companies to take a look at doing that if they want TRI. If they're looking at getting any kind of workforce development assistance, they have to meet the $12 an hour wage range. And so with the companies we deal with, typically they are looking at those higher wages and looking at those incentive programs. So
okay, but then your second point there says that retail, stores and restaurants, that I guess with the news over some things that occurred previously, then $15 an hour is not attainable in those industries.
Right, but the jobs that come in that do pay those wages, those folks go and spend money in those facilities, in those businesses. That's the point. Without those primary jobs, FBI is a classic example. The FBI comes in, they're in the process of, bringing on 350 jobs in a new facility. You see a lot of restaurant and a lot of outlot development in the properties around that. Just smart development.
Okay, so if I only pay $11 an hour, who decides whether or not we're interested in having us come to the community? Is that an arbitrary decision made by BDC, or is that?
No, it's not.
Presented to the
companies are free and welcome to locate in the community. I mean, it's a free country. The thing is that incentives aren't necessarily available.
Okay, so who determines those incentives?
State statute does.
Oh, state statute?
That's who determines what TRI is.
Well, PDA is not bound by that same state statute.
That would be the board of directors with PDA.
With PDA. I guess I'm just trying to make clear that when somebody comes here that may not be meeting that criteria of point one, then who's the individuals or who's the group that decides whether or not there's any incentives that are going to come from the area?
Yeah.
With that, then, the second question is there enough part-time work and such here that allows our college students to find work to supplement going to school, or do most of our students just come on?
I would think there's part-time work given the retail and the dining establishments that are available.
Right, but is that adequate? I mean, do we have any correlation with ISU on?
ISU hasn't reached out to see if there's more opportunities for employment, so I'm assuming that there is.
Okay.
For the students that are seeking it, not all students are necessarily seeking part-time employment.
Okay, thanks.
Here's some of the improvements that we've seen in the economy since 2012, the last 5 years. For the city of Pocatello, now this is just our labor force in the city of Pocatello. We've seen employment numbers rise by about 1,000 people. And unemployment has dropped by more than half. And that number 814 that we have there, I want you to keep that in mind. The unemployment rate has dropped from 7.1% to less than 3%, 2.9. The total number of jobs, vacancies through the Department of Labor in Pocatello is listed as 936. And there's 814 people out there actively seeking. So just within the city of Pocatello, there's not enough people to go around for the jobs that are being advertised right now. And of course, those numbers increase as you start expanding the radius of the study area.
John, how do you recruit businesses if there's no workforce?
Right. Well, like we just talked about, you take a look at the opportunities that are out there for employment. So if we can increase the quality of the jobs, we can pull people that are underemployed. And that's typically what we've been doing in economies like this. Not everybody has come back from the recession to get into the full employment that they feel they can achieve and accomplish. So there are people with skills. Maybe the positions haven't opened up in their field. Maybe they just aren't confident enough to go embark on that. Maybe there's people that just need some more training. And so we try to bring all those resources and opportunities together.
Thanks.
to take a look at the region. This is kind of our labor shed, or our talent base, and that employment level has risen from 77,600 to over 80,000 people, 80,600. Unemployment has dropped from 5,600 down to 2,300. And the unemployment rate, of course, has dropped from 6.8% to 2.8%. And so, good news is, we see more people working.
I'm going to ask the same question I asked you last year, and you guys can't give me an answer.
Okay.
Why is there such a disconnect between statistics that point to vitality and the fact that our taxable assessments have not increased significantly in the last 5 years?
Those are going to be based on what the values of those properties are.
But those values, if you've got a robust economy,
right,
then you should be busting through. You should at least be meeting inflation. And we're not doing that. So there's a disconnect somewhere, John. You know, if we're really doing this well, then people would be moving in. We would be having good jobs that we're paying more money. They'd be paying more for houses. They'd be paying more for industry. But there's a disconnect somewhere, and I would like to find an answer to that. Where is our disconnect?
I think the answer is there's a delay in that. I think you see the value of houses going up right now.
But they're not going up proportionate to the states, to the state of Idaho.
To the state of Idaho.
You know, but we're using statistics to say we're proportionate to the state of Idaho. They're going up, but my house didn't go up at all. Just got my thing. And so it's flat. You know, I know some people.
You should go in to the Board of Equalization and complain. It is not.
Well, but the dilemma is, I want it to go up because it's the biggest investment I have as an individual. I want it to go up. That is something that if I want to change houses as I approach retirement stuff, I want to be able to have that asset transfer to a different asset. But it's not happening. And I don't know why, because you guys give us robust statistics in terms of unemployment rates, the number of people employed. I don't think our population is correspondingly increased to that level either. So to me, what it's telling me is we got a lot of people who are underemployed working a couple jobs and not getting ahead.
I think you will find that the prices of new homes that are being built and the newer homes that have been built, those values and those prices are going up. Now, whether or not the county assesses them that way, I don't know. That's really a Board of Equalization's question to answer. But those prices are going up and those valuations are increasing.
If they were, the state has a mandate that our assessor has to keep it within a certain percentage of what the values are.
Every 5 years.
I was going to say, I think every 5 years they assess different parts of the city. They've broken it up. And I think Highland was assessed this last year. It sounded like some of these taxes went up. So if you want your houses in Texas to go up, wait a year or two and they'll probably hit you.
Well, but I think they're supposed to adjust them based on what they see the trend too. I don't think that they just do it every 5 years. They come in and assess every 5 years. But I think they're supposed to adjust annually to what they see the trend in a community being.
That's probably a tax assessor.
But understand, there's a disconnect still. I brought it up last year. It's the same disconnect that I sense this year. And somehow, you know, if you're booming and you got the real good jobs that people want, they'll move in. And we've seen those trends in the past.
I just think there's a delay, Councilman, and I think you'll start to see those pick up in the next couple of years.
Okay. But we've been listed as one of the fastest recovering cities in this nation. And
yeah, so you're in the top 10% right there.
I don't see that.
Fast recovery, low costs, I think is a good equation. This is one of the items that really we like to talk about, and really kind of highlights how we've been doing coming out of the recession. And again, there's a delay in coming out of the recession and other impacts. But we were in the top 10% of communities analyzed by the Department of Labor, and at that point they were looking. The starting point was $18 an hour. And we had an increase at that point in time of $3,000, almost $3,000 annually. But since then, if you take a look at the increase we've had from that point on, from $18 an hour to currently we're looking at 2036, and that's almost $5,000 annual average increase in wages and salaries. And here's some of the projects, the types of projects that make that happen. Last month we announced the location of Zip Kit Homes. Ultimately that'll be 40 jobs. These are modular homes that are built to IBC standards. So these are 2x6 construction. They're financeable. Basically they're addressing the second home market in the Victor and Driggs area and in Jackson Hole. And so the company has expanded out of their location in Utah up here to address that market. And I think it's going to be a good impact in that, number one, it'll be a good complement to ATCO with the oil industry and the ups and downs that it has. This will be a good buffer for some of those employees to find maybe more stable employment from time to time. Bully Dog, just located here this past year in Old Town Pocatello, bringing 50 high-tech jobs into that part of our community. And that's going to help increase activity down there and business as well. Great Western Malting, they are approaching completion of doubling the size of their plant. In fact, I think in July they'll be doing a ribbon cutting. And so then you'll start to see an impact on the market, essentially doubling their size, but adding 50,000 additional acres of barley to Idaho. Now, Idaho is the #1 barley malt producing state in the nation. And companies like this help make that happen. And these folks supply to just about all the major breweries. This expansion is actually going to address craft brewing, the trend of a lot of these microbreweries that are cropping up all over the country, and craft lines that the major brewers are putting in. But that's an $81,000 investment, but the impact is $307 million annually from this expansion, and that's from a University of Oregon study.
John, one little question about Great Western Malting. We understand that their headquarters is in Australia, right?
Yes, it is. Grain Corp is the multinational corporation that owns them.
How much of their income is lost? I really want to know what stays, but do we lose much of the profit that they're getting to go to Australia, or does it stay in the United States?
No, the main focus. The main focus of their operations is here in the Northwest. They have main offices here for the U.S. in Vancouver, and they also have acreage in facilities in Montana. And so they've got quite a focus, U.S. focused here in the Northwest. They're making investment. In fact, this is the third time they wanted to try to do a project. And so then they came to us to help them with this expansion. They worked with the city, and so we were able to put this project together, because with that, I guess the answer to your question is we are able to pull in more investment and more activity if we successfully complete and compete with that international conglomerate. So really it creates more opportunity for us if we're willing to compete and get these kind of projects.
Thank you. I'm glad to hear that.
Amy's Kitchen, for those of you at the Governor's Breakfast this morning, has been a big success story for the state of Idaho as well as us. They are ahead of their employment schedule. They're at 495 employees now, more than what was there before under Hines, and they are proceeding on their way to 1,000 new jobs.
John, I might add that they just announced this morning that they're hiring 30 more people too, and so that
takes us over 500.
Job opportunity of 900 plus jobs, add another 30 to that as of this morning. So
excellent. And they're good employers. Their employees really like working for them. FBI was announced this past year, 350 new jobs in total. That project has been underway for a couple years, but under the radar, so it wouldn't get spirited away from us. And as I mentioned, that's a driving force behind retail and dining development in that part of the community. Buchanan and Edwards, a company that's associated with the FBI. They'll start the operations when they're at their initial phase 1 at 20 people. They could max out at 50 people. These are jobs that pay $80,000 to $110,000 a year. And so that we've been working with them to help them get established. On Semiconductor, we work continually with the County Commission and On Semiconductor to make sure the tax exemption program is in place. And it gets challenged at the state level and sometimes at the local level as well. And so we have to be vigilant with that, and we are. And that's resulted in $64 million in the last 6 years, but $30 million is being invested additional to that in this year. And you'll be seeing that at another ribbon cutting coming up.
Is that the work the Star Corporation is doing?
Correct. Yes, Star Corporation is their lead contractor. 50 people from that, and probably another 20 to 30 people with subcontractors that are highly specialized, obviously, for building fabrication centers. Western States Caterpillar, they completed their project since we last met. So we put it on the list here. It certainly has changed the skyline down at the south part of Pocatello. Good partner with the schools. They actually get together and do evacuation drills. That's the designation or designated destination for evacuation when there's an emergency at Century High School. SME Steel is adding 150 jobs. They're currently at 125 of that expansion. We've worked with them on infrastructure and training with the site owner, with the Gateway Industrial Park owner, as well as the Department of Labor to make sure more training is available for the welders. In fact, there's a whole new curriculum available now at the College of Technology. But we also continue to do our marketing to bring in those outside companies. We are going to be at 6 SHOT shows or conferences this year. The idea, whether you're at a conference or a trade show or at some other kind of event where you're going to meet with companies or site selectors, the idea is to get face-to-face. Even if you're just sending out communications, you always want to get that face-to-face meeting so that you can start the collaboration. So we've been at the SHOT show this year, and we drop off flash drives. We don't have paper products too much anymore, unless we just want to go with one visual that keeps us at the top of their mind. And we usually drop off about 20 of those flash drives at the SHOT show with companies that we meet. The Site Selectors Guild, which is national site selectors, actually international site selectors that get together a couple times a year. We go to their annual meeting and we drop off 20 flash drives there. And this is usually when we have a face-to-face conversation, talk about the community, pitch who we are, and that's what we leave them with. So they keep it and utilize it. Live Exchange, which we just got back from in the Salt Lake City area, we dropped off 20 flash drives with the companies there. This was different in that we actually had companies as well as site selectors that we could meet with, and we had a couple good leads with companies and a couple great contacts with some site selectors there. 2017 responses that we have from inquiries we get or companies that we manage to develop a relationship with and work on a project. 18 of those we've had so far this year directly, and 5 with Commerce that we've actually developed responses for. 2016, last year, we actually ended up with 29 direct leads and 13 from Commerce that we processed. We've got upcoming marketing, though. I mentioned that we're going to be at 6 of these conferences or trade shows, Select USA, we're doing in conjunction with a significant part of the whole state in Commerce. Ready will be there. Southern Idaho will be there. Idaho Power and from the Boise area, Nampa will be there. And we usually give out about 30 flash drives there. There's a booth and there's face-to-face meetings, so I'm not quite sure where all of them go, but we anticipate that most all of those go to companies that are interested in our area. Outdoor Retailer is coming up. This is, again, fits one of our markets, the outdoor recreation market, and we'll drop off about 20 of those there. The Pharma Pack Expo, we're thinking about going back to that. We're planning on it. We usually get rid of about 30 flash drives, but the determining factor on that will be what amount of time our direct marketing efforts take up. These are our markets: advanced manufacturing, high-tech, insurance, real estate, mining and minerals production, and pharmaceutical packaging. You recognize most of these because they're strong sectors in our economy, strong clusters. Pharmaceutical is a new one, but we've got a capacity for that. We've got one of the top pharmaceutical schools in the nation. And in visiting with them and other departments, the Economic Development and Research Department, we've identified some target areas that we can work with pharmacy and the College of Technology to try to recruit companies that could grow and succeed here. One of the other marketing campaigns that we did since we last met is we did our California call trip. About once every other year, California steps in it really bad, and so we go out and we start talking to companies. In this instance, the cost of living is getting so high in the San Francisco, San Jose area that 30% of the residents there are planning on leaving. This naturally spooks companies. Companies are struggling with constantly increasing costs of tenancy. Companies like Amazon, Google, Cisco are taking up these spaces and pushing the rents so high that they are having a hard time succeeding there. So they're looking at getting out. So we had 7 visits with companies there last year, and had about 6 really good leads. A couple of those have dropped out, and a couple of them are strong that we're going to be working with, hopefully, to get site visits in the community in the future and turn them into prospects. One of the other linchpins that we just wrapped up with this year is talent development. We lead the state in that, and that's because of the Your Future in Technology program. And that started out with students that just didn't know much about the technical opportunities that we have here. And that's because of, and the concern for this is because we have a lot of folks retiring in the area, and the Idaho National Laboratory and we got together and collaborated on a concept to get out and start talking to high schoolers about these, actually 9, it says 7 here, but we've increased that to 9 career and technology areas, and we also conducted 9 career and technology expos to inform students about that. Oops. And what we did is we went to the high schools with the employers and the College of Technology to show the students the jobs and the career training that's available right now. And so these are the areas that we were promoting, but you can recognize cybersecurity, unmanned aerial systems, nuclear operating technicians are all areas that the Idaho National Laboratory is going to be interested in. And their fear is because of this silver tsunami, all the retirees that are coming out, they're going to be looking hard for workers in the next 5 years as about 500 people retire. So we worked with them and our high schools and the other economic development agencies in Southeast Idaho to put this on. We had good support from the schools and from the cities and from the county. And so we were able to get that done. And so that's been recognized statewide. The Department of Labor has put together a cookbook to help other communities do this. And the Idaho Economic Development Association had us present at their last get together. So the results of all this are our results, our investment, jobs, and revenue for our community, our region, and the state. And so we produce results now, and we have historically. And again, as I mentioned, impact on our communities. We're the leading talent development organization in Idaho. And so we've done this, and we've got a proven track record that you've seen and that you've seen the recent examples of. And so we think that Bannock Development continues to be a smart and responsible investment at current levels. Or if you want to increase our support from the Pocatello City Council, we'd appreciate that. We think it's a smart investment for you.
Questions for John?
I was just wondering about the flash drives that you give out. Could we get one of those and look at what's on it?
We can get some of those, yeah.
Okay.
Sure. We can get those, yeah.
Could we get a copy of that?
Can we get it, John? Can you burn us a copy of that too? Or email it to us?
Flash drive as well.
Sure, we can put that on.
Over my years in industry, I guess I'm not a big fan of trade shows. I guess I just, and so here's where I'm going to go with this. Is on your slide it said 29 contacts in 2016. Is that what it said? 29
Those were responses that we were contacted, that we actually issued some kind of proposal or information from companies that were interested.
Okay, 29. How many of those, if any, are going to relocate or come to Pocatello or?
That's kind of hard to say. We've been working with one company here for 3 years that's just starting to look at. But, our track record is we're seeing, 2 or 3, every single year, some kind of a location. By anybody's measure, even in bad times, when you get one a year, you're doing pretty good. But it's a low conversion rate. 10% is
right, and
outrageous.
So how do we increase the conversion rate? Okay, because if we're not getting even a 1%
Mike, you build a new clubhouse at the golf course.
The Jim Johnson Club.
There you go. But that's where I'm going with that is I think sometimes it's better to network and find out who's looking and get an appointment and sit face to face with them across the desk and give your pitch rather than standing in dog and pony show in an event center with 2,000 other people vying for their time and their investment.
Well, and what we do is we try to schedule appointments with the targeted companies. We target the trade shows. We target what we do. We try to take ourselves out of this big mix, and we target the people that we want to speak to. We also, like the call trip to California. That's just exactly what you're talking about, and that's why we go and do that. But once we see a weakness that we can take advantage of, we also do retention expansion visits to go to our companies to find out if they're going to do an expansion, if they have needs, if they have issues. And we convert. You saw a lot of what we do right now is expansions, and that's from our retention and expansion program. But to answer your question directly, how to increase that conversion rate is increase some of the fully served properties that we have available. I mean, we've been working pretty hard with the city on trying to get the FAA to be more amenable to that. But that's one thing that would, since I've been here, convert at least 4.
Yeah. Okay. Just something to think about going down.
No. It's a valid question, and there are some specific reasons, some specific things we can do.
Mike, I really think we're doing some of the good things that make a difference. For example, if you look at the airport at Boise, look at all those industries right around it. There's some pretty significant things. I think what we are doing in terms of developing infrastructure at our airport, we're preparing ourselves for some additional really good things that can happen. We need John to help bring those people in and fill up that space that we've got out there.
That'd be great. But you need to ask, he brought up the question. We'll discuss that another time. So.
What's your split when it comes to focusing on trying to bring people from outside of the area versus retention and focusing on businesses that are already here?
Usually we look at about 50-50. It's easier to cover the ground with the local businesses versus the marketing, and so you see more activity, bigger numbers. But it's harder. It just takes more energy to recruit a new company, and that's kind of a basic rule of business. It's easier to keep a current customer than to bring in a new one. That's probably kind of skewed right now. I would count the Your Fit program as retention and expansion because we're trying to get labor into the community for our existing business. So, given the time we've put into that, I'm going to say 65, 70%. I would say 70% retention and expansion, and the rest of the work, that we put on, the marketing takes up the rest of it.
Yeah, I think the Your Fit program. I think you'll have the other economic development groups ready. They'll talk about that, the workforce being available to bring in these large corporations, and it's a challenge. It's a challenge everywhere when you get unemployment rate so low. And what I've seen from the YourFit, not only does it excite the kids to learn about these industries that have jobs available right now, but it also excites the parents. A lot of them are underemployed, potentially underemployed, and that opens their eyes to what possibilities are out there. So I think that's a great thing that really the group has jumped on to go with. So.
Well, I know that when I took my boys, there was a vendor, what do you call them? One of the industries.
Yeah, one of the exhibitors.
One of the exhibitors shook my boys' hands and handed them a card and said, "Now you call me when you're ready for a job because I can make you a lot more money than your dad's making now."
And did you get one of his cards?
And I said, "Come on, I'd like an interview."
Give me a card, huh? Any other questions, comments? Thank you. Thank you, John. Thank you for being here and for being patient with us this morning. Both of you, thank you for being patient with us this morning.
You know, if you're ready for lunch, a break, we can do that and come back. We're scheduled here all day anyway, so.
Well, let's go ahead and let's go ahead and do it. I haven't seen lunch walk by this morning, and so yeah.
You haven't seen what?
I haven't seen lunch come in the front door yet, so I don't know if they've got it ordered yet.
Y'all get it brought in.
So, yeah, we're not going somewhere for it. They're bringing it to us. We'll go ahead and move on to agenda item number 6, READY presentation. Representatives from Regional Economic Development Eastern Idaho, READY, will be present to discuss their organization.
Well.
Good morning.
Good morning. Well, are we still there? No?
We're in the afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Councilman. We're really excited to be here today to present READY and some of the things that we've been doing. You know, we're not clearly as mature an organization as Bannock BDC is, but we feel like we've been charging ahead for the last, year and 9 months. With me today, if there's anyone on this council that does not know Molly Swallow, raise their hand. We just brought Molly on, I think maybe just a little less than a month ago, to work as our manager of investor relations and advocacy. And many of you have, but some of you have not met Josh Wise, who is, we've just promoted to our manager of talent attraction and business development. So there are actually 3-time employees on staff at READY now, which I'm pretty excited about. In my entire career in the economic development field, this is the first time we've had 3 full-time employees besides me, myself, and I. So it's kind of exciting.
Don't know what to do with all the time you have.
I know. Trust me, it's being filled up. We also have a couple of other folks that we work with. Darlene Gary, who many of you may know here, was the interim director before I was hired, but she's also a consultant for us and works on one of the national councils that I sit on. And Lisa Budicke, who has been working with me for over 16 years on marketing public relations. And so we're very fortunate to have her. We've seen and we're going to continue to see even more opportunity for the public relations and marketing communications because of her activities. So with that, I thought I'd just take you through, really this is just sort of a brief introduction as to this organization, what we've kind of been up to. Please feel free to interrupt and ask questions at any time. I really appreciate the opportunity just to share with you what we're doing and really how we leverage this regional organization with the local communities and counties to really enhance our opportunities and help drive business to Eastern Idaho. So our mission and purpose is to work with the 14 counties and bring everyone together. And I think you've probably seen a lot of that happen over in the southern Idaho area. We're seeing it today. I was so excited when Mayor Merrill came down from Rexburg. He was delighted to come to participate in this morning's event. So, just making the mayors and folks familiar all the way up and down that 78-mile corridor, I think is really going to help us in the, as we move forward. So doing that, but really is to strengthen the business and diversify the economy of the region. At the end of the end game in economic development has been for me, and it is for this organization, the end game is to drive opportunity and bring opportunity to the families and the communities that we serve. That's the end game. It's about winning opportunities for them. So it's not about us, and you're going to see that here next, I think. Yeah.
Could you detail the 14 counties? Do you range all the way to the Utah border?
It's everything from the Utah to the Montana border, with the exception of Lemhi and Custer. So these two regions in our state, which makes me nuts that the state broke us into two regions, is we're not even 200 miles border Montana to Utah, but we're broken into two regions. Those two regions are 16 counties, but they don't geographically, and you'll see in the next slide, geographically they don't really, if you're on the outside looking in, eastern Idaho is geographically identified. It is that chunk on the eastern side of our state. When you get into Custer and Lemhi, that's really more in central Idaho. And so we really defined the region to be what it is, how it is geographically defined, and not how the state defined us. Nobody on the outside actually sees those lines. Okay, but in any event, when I came on board, of course, Ready was the name of the organization, and we, basically everything that all the communications was in and around this organization, the name Ready, the organization Ready. But that's really not our brand. That's not what we're selling. What we're selling is Eastern Idaho, the region. So immediately we separated the two brands. Certainly Ready is the internal brand for the organization. It's the entity. It is not what we're promoting, and in all the materials, marketing materials you see, you will see Eastern Idaho prominently displayed and not the entity Ready. Nobody on the outside really cares or knows what is Ready. So we're selling Eastern Idaho. So we developed the external brand, which is Eastern Idaho. And as fate would have it, go figure, on that day, I'm lamenting, saying, gosh, I wish we had the easternidaho.org for our web, because we had Ready #4 Idaho. And I just had to say right up front, I said, where in Idaho are we ready? Because there's nothing in this URL that says Eastern Idaho. So as I'm saying that, Darlene, Gary did this, and she said, well, it's available. I said, you got to be kidding me. I said, buy it right now and everything around it. And so that's how we got easternidaho.org, which is perfect because it fits our brand. So again, when I was interviewing for this job, I couldn't find, through my research, what is Eastern Idaho? So I asked that question over and over again, what is Eastern Idaho? What does that mean? And then as I had Josh, and I wish I had that book with me, I had Josh pull a map together for me so we could actually tell people when we're talking to them, what is Eastern Idaho? It's this. It's that on the left, that image on the left. And then just I don't know, I was doodling, and I just went from Pocatello to Rexburg, and drew the line. And when I drew the line, it was literally the center of our region. That business corridor from ISU, Pocatello to Rexburg is 78 miles. That's what that red line represents. And really, that is the core business sector for the region. Just so happens it sits right in the middle of the Galdang region. How cool is that visually? But that's kind of a boring map. So what we did was we created something with a little bit more interest to it, and then began to define what is Eastern Idaho. Minimally, I knew that Eastern Idaho was consisted of 2 major universities with a national lab in between. That I knew. When I asked the question, what is Eastern Idaho, as I was interviewing, at least 8 out of 10 people, and what makes us special, what makes you special, at least 8 out of 10 people said, what? What do you guess? We're the gateway to Yellowstone. I said, you gotta be kidding me. We're promoting Wyoming and Montana before we're even talking about Idaho. So we began to develop and hone and focus the story a little bit. So really what we ended up with was, when we looked at it, was we're not only bookended by these 2 major universities, but we had 4 major research and science labs in between the universities. And so really at the end of the day, they're research and science, so we decided, you know what? This is really more of an innovation corridor. It's not a technology corridor. It's not anything else. It's an innovation corridor. And so that's broadly how we have started to market this region, and we've begun to refine that message as well. So now we're in year 2. We sort of generally defined what makes up, and actually, Brian, you might remember when we were at Select USA last year, I was using that graphic with the 2 universities and the 4 research, and we were visiting with one of the research companies, and he looked at that graphic and he said, oh my gosh, you've got a cluster. You know, just by showing it in a way that people can recognize what it is we have and the message. So this year we decided we're going to take it and sharpen that focus a little bit. And really what we come up with are 3 pillars that drive our economy. Certainly ag is one of them. Higher ed, we own it. Not only did we get the College of Eastern Idaho, but we got the Polytechnic. ISU's Polytechnic, so we increased what was already robust. So we really own higher ed, and that's going to be a really big deal for us moving forward. But it's the federal programs. We have 5 major federal programs that don't even span the 78 miles. Starting with the FBI, Homeland Security, INL, my goodness Lord, the Navy just announced and are starting construction of a $1.65 billion project out at the DOE site. And then, of course, the cleanup. So it's those programs plus the businesses that they serve and the businesses that serve them. Major part of our economic drivers. But there's actually a 4th one, but we're not focusing on it, but it makes a big difference in our quality of place and how we sell the region, and that is tourism. Tourism is really the 4th pillar of our economy in Eastern Idaho, but it's not a focus that Reddy or we're going to focus on, but you're going to see it interwoven in a lot of the marketing materials that we put together. So what makes us special? I gave you guys a prepared little book. In there, there's a magazine, the Idaho Investment Guide, and I hope you guys have the page number where our campaign starts. We developed it's on page 1. We developed a 5-page advertising campaign to start to tell the story of what is Eastern Idaho, so that 78-mile business corridor, and we decided to tell it in city pairs. And so we started with Rexburg Sugar City, and we tried to find 3 things that made them special. You're going to hear over and over again, it's not about live, work, play. Everybody says live, work, play we have the best. It's about what makes you special. And then we took some of those things that made us special as Eastern Idaho, and we wrapped it up with a regional lab, which is what's on the screen now. But we talk about Rexburg, Sugar City, Idaho Falls, Ammon, Blackfoot, Shelley, Pocatello, Chubbuck, and you don't see anywhere on that Reading. It's all about Eastern Idaho. In this magazine, we had 5 consecutive right-hand pages so that we would begin to tell the story of what is Eastern Idaho. And we've taken that further, and I wished I had it today. We just approved the final yesterday. We're going to be taking it to Select USA, a 16-page brochure that works off of this same concept, talking again about each of this, introducing. We're going to use it at Select USA, and we're also going to use it at Coronet later in the year. But again, there is a place, and it's Eastern Idaho, and we're starting to tell the story. That's what really we're doing from a marketing perspective. We're starting to tell and build the story of what is Eastern Idaho. And this is an example of a city pair ad. So really, each area is unique. Each community has its own personality. And it's not each city pair has their own personality, it's each community. And you have, that's something that you guys develop. We're happy to help you enhance that, but it's your own personality, and that's something that you need to, you guys focus on. I'm focusing on what makes Eastern Idaho special, and why you should look at us, and why you should look at Pocatello or Chubbuck or IF or Rexburg or any of the other communities that make sense for you. And each community is set up differently with their own assets. At the end of the day, and those of us who've been working in economic development for a long time, you know that the client drives the decision, period. In fact, we're working on a project we'll talk about in a minute that when they came to me, they were actually focused on a site in Pocatello. And they're still focused on this site in Pocatello, but we may have some issues with it. So again, we're beginning to tell the story. That's what we do. Here's the reality. You can have the best product or the best widget in the world, but if nobody knows about it and nobody knows you have it, when they're in the market, you will not be a consideration. That is the reality. And if you're telling your story in a way that people can't get their head around it, that's another problem. So over the last year and a half, what we've been trying to do is to hone that, actually figure it out and then start to hone that message so that the external audience, as well as the internal audience, has a better understanding of what is Eastern Idaho. Because right now, what's driving any new business, whether it's expansion or attraction, is talent. It's all about the talent. And so you can't, that's really what's driving it. We're going to be doing some things in that area as well as an organization, but not in talent development, in talent attraction and retention. So here's some of just the highlights that we've done in the last,
Jan?
Yeah?
Pardon me for interrupting, but I want to go back to that last word you said on your previous slide, or where your talent.
Talent.
I think you've hit the major underlying issue right square on the head. I have the luxury of traveling a bit and meeting with a lot of different companies and working with them and such. And I was telling John before we come back in from the break, I have not been with one of those companies in the last 18 months that exact same issue came up.
It's it.
They can't find people. They can't find people that want to work the hours. They can't find people that want to work overtime. They can't find people that seem to be responsible enough to get up and get themselves dressed and get to work every day. So either I am talking with the wrong companies, or that is a fundamental issue that's occurring across the
national country. It's a national issue. And honestly, if somebody had already figured out that silver bullet on how we fix that, we'd all be doing it.
Right.
Okay? And so that's what led to a couple of things that we're doing, that we did, because I knew we needed to do that, or we weren't even gonna get close to the silver bullet. And nobody's figured it out. I mean, I just came back from the IDC. I sit on the board of directors for the National Economic Development Organization. I'm telling you, it's without fail, that is the number one thing that comes up.
That's almost academic.
Yeah, but nobody's figured it out yet
Right.
either.
Well,
So
maybe we can.
So we're going to be doing some things. We're going to fail and we're going to succeed, but we're going to be doing some things, and I'll tell you how we're going to do that.
Thank you.
We did first time I've done primary research in years. But we did primary research on Eastern Idaho millennials, because we needed to understand, if you've looked at millennial research at all, most of it is in and around what? Urban millennial studies. They're not talking about the rural millennial. And so I said, well, we need to have a better understanding. There's lots of millennials working in Eastern Idaho, and they're here for a reason. So what is that? So we did primary research. We did 2 phases, a focus group study and then a quantified, statistically significant study to verify what we learned in the focus groups with Eastern Idaho millennials. And we asked the question, why are you here? What's keeping you here? And what would make you leave? And one of the most interesting takeaways from that, because as we're going up, and I think John will agree with me, as you're going up and down talking to companies throughout the region, they're going, my gosh, I'm dying, I can't get the people, I have all these job openings, I can't, I'm struggling here. And you know what the number one reason that the millennials leave? Because they perceive there are no job opportunities in Eastern Idaho. So there is a major disconnect between what's here and available and how we're communicating that with the talent that's in and around Eastern Idaho. So that provides us an opportunity, right? So we're going to be millennial to a millennial group, figuring out opportunities and ways to attract the talent in and retain the talent that we have. There are lots of folks and organizations working on the talent development side, but almost nothing is happening on the talent attraction. We can't do it without all 3. You can't just expect to grow it and have enough. We're not going to have enough. We have to bring it in as well. So that's one of the things that we've done, and we have just completed that. We've done a morning education series, and that's bringing in on topics that I think are specific to the Eastern Idaho area. We have one on tribal relations with communities. We've had 2 now on the millennial research, so we're going to continue to do that. I also sit on the U.S., I was appointed last year to the U.S. Investment Advisory Council by then Secretary Penny Pritzker. We didn't know whether or not the new Secretary, Wilbur Ross, was going to continue that council. He is. We just met with him a couple of weeks ago, heard what their focus is going to be, and also had the opportunity. I think one of the reasons I was appointed to that council, there's about 19 folks that sit on that council from across the U.S., was because I had a rural perspective. And I know it's ironic. I come from Dallas with a Texas accent, but I do have, and that rural is in my heart. And so we were able to talk about that because we talked about it there, but we talked about it with the deputy director of the national economic development at the White House. And as we were talking about it, and about EDA and about CDBG and some of the things that are on the table to be cut, and saying without those, rural America can't create the jobs. And I said, really, at the end of the day, it's about creating jobs in rural America. And he said to me, quote, "If the president were sitting right here, right now, he would agree with you 100%. So I think there's going to be opportunity if we can connect the dots for this administration and at the commerce level on what things are important that are going to continue to help rural America continue to make those jobs, because it's a little scary out there now for people in economic development. We had about 25 leads that came in, 19 direct, which really surprised me, and several of those came in directly off our website. Any of you who have seen our website will know it is not extremely robust at the moment. However, it must be effective, because I never got an actual lead through the Sadoo website. And I have thought we had a pretty good website. But I have gotten, 3 or 4 direct leads coming, we're interested, and actually talk to people off our website. So we're going to have a more robust website. That's on the agenda for this coming year. But we are actually getting leads, which kind of surprised me, directly into our organization because we're so new. And one of the leads that we're working, we'll talk about with Project Cowboy, it came in directly, again, kind of a surprise. When you're a year and a half old, you don't expect people to find you that quick, but they are. We did attend 14 conferences, but we focus our conferences not on the general, but on the specific, because resources are limited. So Select USA, which I'm going to talk a little bit more in detail about just quickly, and I'm trying to talk as fast as I can. Just one little quick breath. So we can all move to lunch. But in any event, the Site Selector Guild, we have been attending for the last 3 years as well, and that's because they're the 45 of the top site selectors in the U.S. are part of this guild. You get really one-on-one time. Mike Mullis is one of the founding members of this. As you know, Mike Mullis was the site selector that helped close the Amy's deal. He did Cliff Bar, he did Marathon Cheese, and he did one up north. So he's done 4 projects in our state. And so having that relationship with him is really important. So we do that, we do Coronet, and we do Select USA. Those are the primary conferences. Select USA, let's go with that. Select USA is really a unique conference, and the mayor was there last year with us. This will be my 4th year. The first year I went, I was the only person from Idaho that went, and I got there and it was like, uh-oh, we have really missed the bucket here. There were probably nearly 30 states, because that's who exhibit at this conference, at this summit, and we weren't there. In fact, nobody was there but me. The next year we took 8, and we were overwhelmed. And last year, we got, because of the year 2, last year it even grew bigger. And so we actually leveraged it out. We got our governor on the main stage, and when we did that, we said, how much more does it cost us as a state to go up to the platinum, to the top sponsorship of this summit? And it was another, I don't know, $28,000 or something like that. And what we did, which is exactly what we're doing in the region, is we went out and we tapped every resource throughout the state, and we all came together so that we could actually take it to the top as one of the top platinum. Now, understand who else is up there. New York, Texas, Ohio, and Georgia, and Idaho. So we are really kind of a curiosity. We're such a small state, but we're up there as a top sponsor with these other folks.
I was a little curious, New York, Texas, Georgia, I was curious with them. I think they're the curious ones.
Yeah, don't you? And Ohio, too, yeah.
We belong there.
Yeah, we definitely, we owned it, and we owned it last year because Butch owned it. So I said as we were leaving last year, there's no way to go back. We can't come in as a top sponsor and then go back to a silver or a gold. Once you're there, this is all about relationships. Every single company that comes to this event has been vetted by their embassies or someone that And the only way they can get into this summit is that they have to say, we are interested in investing in the U.S. So they're already pre-vetted. And then our job, of course, is to get them to invest with us. Now, as fate would have it, we did that last year. We had a company that we met with last year. Actually, it was a group of Japanese companies we met with last year. Sockeye Casting was one of those companies, and began talking about the opportunity of doing business in the U.S. And we worked with him, with that company and others over the last 8 or 9 months, and they announced, that company and another Japanese company, Ozan, announced they have created businesses here in Idaho. They have an office in Idaho Falls. They are working on an iGEM grant with the University of Idaho, and they will also be at this coming up Select USA, and guess what? They're bringing 3 more Japanese companies for us to meet that want to have a visit with us because they're interested in doing business in the U.S. So this is hopefully the gift that's going to keep on giving. We also are meeting with, we had met with an Israeli company there. They actually came here for a site visit. We had 2 site visits, same day at ISU in Pocatello. One was Israeli, one was Japanese. And that Israeli company is also going back to Select USA, and we are having dinner with him and with the lieutenant governor who's coming this year. So again, you can see that it's not only about building these opportunities, but it's actually about converting them and then taking advantage of that and pushing the envelope. We hope to look at doing an FDI trade mission in November this year to Japan. And the governor's going over for his Vietnam trade mission. We're trying to get him to tag onto the front end to do an FDI trade mission and stop over in Tokyo and make a big dang deal of our first FDI trade mission. So that's just an example of one of the things that we turned this turned a lot quicker than I expected. We're going to get a lot of press on this. We've gotten a lot of play on it at the national level. At Select USA, we had a great quote from Select USA. They did help us with this recruitment. So we think there's a lot more to come there. Red Ranger, Cowboy is the, I don't want to lose my rhythm, but what I do want to do, since we just left Select USA, we have your briefing book, and we have one for Mike Pence, John. Yeah. Ennis, I mean. Oh, gosh. Let's elevate Mike Ennis to this. It's all about title, right, with these international folks. Let's go ahead and.
Yeah, I'll take it.
We're going to provide the briefing books for the Select USA. There'll be more to come on that, but I figured you weren't going to be available this afternoon, so I wanted to bring it on down.
Hopefully we'll have it wrapped up, and I will be, but we'll see.
Okay, we'll see. Anyway, Cowboy is a company it's an ag-based company. It's in eastern Idaho. They have several facilities in eastern Idaho. They will be, this project is going to happen. And they are really fixated on a site here in Pocatello that may or may not end up working. So we're looking at, Chubbuck has found us a site over there that has potential, and we're also looking at Bingham. But that is a project that we're currently working on and is real. And I just heard from the company's representative yesterday, and they're
John Wayne.
I'm sorry?
John Wayne.
John Wayne? No, not John Wayne. Darn it. Bush was John Wayne. That's what I called him last year. You would, if y'all had been there, you'd have just, I mean, am I wrong?
No,
John?
no.
Was Butch John Wayne at that? I mean, they were getting their autographs. They wanted their picture taken with him. He was John Wayne. River Dance and River Walk are both expansion opportunities in the Bingham area. Camp Plan and Radius are in the Idaho Falls, considering Idaho Falls. These are all, y'all, I'm sure y'all familiar with project names, right? Because that's what these are. These are all the code names. And then Granite actually is another one here in the Pocatello Chubbuck area, an expansion opportunity. So you can see they're all across the table, these opportunities that are reaching out to us. And there's more, but these are the active ones. These are the ones that we're actually working with that have the potential to move forward. So, quickly, last slide, right before my mouth completely cottons up on me. Here are some of the benefits of being a member, a public sector member of our organization. You know, our organization is, the model is public and private sector. The model in Southern Idaho was public, private, and the College of Southern Idaho, which was the largest contributor. So the benefits of membership, so these are really more defined as a public sector benefits. And there's, of course, a lot more than this, but, you know, obviously it's all about leveraging. I mean, nobody has we couldn't do what we did at the state level. We couldn't be a platinum sponsor at Select USA unless everybody in the state put all their funds in. That's what gives us the bigger voice. The same concept works with the region. Of course, with the advocacy and support, ad hoc representation on the executive board for public sector, and we really need the voice. You know, we really want the voice from the Pocatello-Chubbuck area, the southern end of our region, on that executive board. You certainly get full access to all of our primary research studies. In participation in the workshop, potential participation in state and national events. Another thing that we're hopeful of this year that I would actually like to bring someone along. We've been doing I've been attending this White House Economic Development Forum that they've had for the last 5 years, and I'd like to bring somebody else, and I think I can do that if they continue those forums this year. And that's really gives an opportunity to see it at the 50,000 foot level, but also gives you an opportunity to meet and talk to deputies and folks within commerce and other places. And it needs to be somebody other than me. So there's opportunities there, and certainly at the state and national levels, we have, that's part of being a member. And the member communities also get first priority on projects. Now, let me explain what I mean by that. If a company doesn't care, they're not looking at a specific area, or they may be looking at a specific area, but maybe they might consider something else, then we're certainly going to present our member communities first. But the company drives the show. So if they want to look specifically at one area, then that's all we're going to do. But if they're looking first and they don't really care where they're going in Eastern Idaho, we're always going to present our member communities first. And that's something that I think anybody could expect. We did the same over there. If it doesn't work, we're going to spread out. And we did the same thing. That was the same model we used in Southern Idaho as well. Of course, the newsletters and the press releases, we have a professional on staff. You'll see also in this book, this Eastern Idaho is Booming is the latest. This is an Expansion Solutions magazine. It's an economic development trade publication. This is the latest article that we have in it. We have multiples in that. Also, I've included in here a copy of the Memorandum of Understanding, which is going to actually be changed to include, actually we're looking at changing the bylaws as well as this, and that will be at our next meeting to be more inclusive, so that every time somebody joins, we don't have to go in and change the bylaws. So what we're actually doing is we're looking at it in that 5-county area, not the 3 counties. So we're going from Madison, Jefferson, Bonneville, Bingham, Banning would be the 5 primary counties that represent the core business sector for Eastern Idaho. Not counting tourism, but the core business sector. And so we're developing a language that will show how that membership works on both the executive board and the advisory board, and that will be reflected also in the memorandum of understanding. But I wanted to include this because the memorandum of understanding is the one we are currently using with our other members. And so that would just give you a bit of an idea of what you can expect from us and what we can expect from you. So, that's a lot.
Questions?
So are you presenting yourself as a bigger gorilla in the room to replace what we already have?
Absolutely not. And hope nobody thinks about that, because this is really not an either or, this is an and. Our organization, and that's the way it really worked over in Southern Idaho too. There were a number of, like Jerome 2020 and the MCEDC, a number of organizations like the BDC that we worked with in Southern Idaho. It's not an either or, it's an additional resource. It's an additional marketing
tool. Say tool.
Tool, thank you. But that's really what it is. It's not trust me, it's not a replacement. Right now we work with, and I did over there, I worked with mayors, I worked with public works folks, I worked with economic developers, I worked with city administrators and managers. I mean, it's whoever the community appoints and says, Jan, when something comes in, go work with so-and-so. And that's what we do. It's really you're the member, you're the one that directs the organization.
I'm going to ask a question, then I'm going to explain why I'm asking the question. What's changed from today, having you sit here, versus when this first started? The reason I'm asking that is because when it first started, emotions ran so high that relationships were damaged.
Right.
There are people that still struggle to speak to each other in rational tones because of the experience of this initial launch.
Yeah, and unfortunately, I mean, I was not a part of that original discussion. Had I been a part of it at that time, I would certainly have argued vehemently against the direction that was proposed at the time. I don't think that would have been necessary to have collapsed everything into one. If you do, I mean, it's a completely different model. I will tell you, from the time I started, there's only one way I know how to do this, period. And you have to, and it's the way we're doing it. The region is the region. All of the babies are the same, okay? There's no one that gets any more attention than the other. You can't do that. If you do that, the organization may go ahead and continue to exist, but certainly the person running it's not. You can't show any favoritism. So everybody is treated on an equal basis. The region is treated that way. That's the reason why you may say, well, we haven't given you a dang dime. Why are you doing ads for us? And why are you promoting us? And why are you doing any of those things? Well, because you cannot represent the region of Eastern Idaho and say everything but this big chunk of Pocatello and, Chubbuck. You have to, if you're going to represent the region, you're going to represent the region. Now, do we get more involved with the communities that we work with? Absolutely, but not to the expense of the region. So I'm not sure. I have absolutely heard some really disturbing concerns about how this thing came together originally, but I can assure you from the day they hired me forward, this is what you're seeing is exactly the way this organization is running.
I'm glad to hear about the spread of attention, because early on there was real concern about this being a replacement for Grow Idaho Falls. And a lot of that concern, we would put money into the organization, but somebody else would get all the attention. And so I'm glad you addressed
Well,
that.
and I'm glad that you mentioned that, because that is, of course, not what we are. And in fact, I was so sensitive to that I refused to move into the offices of Old Grove, Idaho Falls, because I knew what was going to happen. Where's Ready? Well, they're in the Old Grove, Idaho Falls building. Well, no, we're not that entity. We are a completely different entity, so we had to have a new space. And we have 3 spaces. We have offices here in Chubbuck, of course, Blackfoot, and Idaho Falls. So we've got offices in all 3 communities. And people say, well, where is it? Well, our mailing address is in Idaho Falls. But we are working the whole region, all the way up to Rexburg. So it's not, you can't do it. You can't do it any other way and have a regional organization. It just won't work. There has to be trust. There has to be, you have to know that everyone's going to have the same equal treatment. And I would dare say that if anybody out there says somebody's getting more treatment, better treatment than the other one, I'd be shocked. Because we're very, very careful. And you couldn't do that for 15 years over there without upsetting the apple cart once, and we did not, because I'm really sensitive to that one fact. It's all got to be simple, and I mean, it's all got to be equal. But understand, this is not an either-or situation. What you're doing is leveraging your investment and just taking it to a different level. Many of the things that BDC does are not dissimilar from what we do, only we take it at a level further. To the bigger the noise, when we go in as a state and a platinum, they're looking at us. When you go in as a region and you tell them all of these things that are going on from a regional perspective, they're looking at us differently. You look at that map and you see that cluster. It doesn't work if you're just looking at one part of that cluster. So, any other questions? I cannot tell y'all how much I appreciate y'all having us here and letting us visit with you about Ready, and I hope we've answered some of your questions, and at least you have a better understanding of where we're coming from.
Appreciate it.
You bet.
Thank you very much. Thanks for your patience this morning as well. We had a meeting, a breakfast, and then we had a late start on a meeting, and so we've got a late lunch, and so thank you very much for that. It's great. We're about halfway done with our meeting today now. So. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
So with that, we will adjourn for lunch, and we will start back as soon as we're done with lunch. Thank you for joining us this afternoon after the lunch break. We appreciate you being here. We'll continue on with our study session agenda on agenda item number 7, which is Fleet Management Program for City Vehicles. Tom Kirkman, Street Operations Superintendent, will be present to give a presentation regarding the proposed fleet management program that would centralize all city vehicles. Good morning. Afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mayor and City Council. I'm Tom Kirkman, Street Operations Superintendent. I'm joined with Teresa Caudell, Street Operations, and Jeff Mansfield, our Public Works Director. I wanted to give Teresa a little shout out. She's our fuel site. She oversees our fuel site, and she's really helped out a lot collecting as much data as we can through our fuel site to try and put some sort of numbers together. To give you some sort of an idea about this.
Well, tell her to look happier than I am.
That's not hard.
No, it's not hard. So we've kind of made these slides intentionally wordy for you so that there's going to be a lot of information kind of quick. So if you need something to look at a little bit later. We're going to try and keep this at about 30,000 feet to decide if this is a direction that you guys want to go, because just like anything, the deeper you go, the more complicated it gets. So first of all, our objective was to evaluate and develop a more coordinated and consistent way to manage our fleet assets. And then we were also looking to develop a plan that would improve our service levels of our city vehicles. So our strategy on this, the first thing we did is we used our central city fuel site to collect data. Our fuel site, every person or vehicle has a fob that you enter in, and you can put in mileage or not, and it tracks how much fuel that vehicle's using. Some of the departments don't put their mileage in, and a handful, there's only a couple that put their mileage in. When they put their mileage in, it helps us a lot more when we start looking at utilization, because we can find a more broad picture when we use mileage for utilization.
Why wouldn't we have them put in their mileage? I've got to do that for the IRS. I've got to do that for my work. I've got to...
Exactly. That's one of the things I was going to ask you today, if that is a direction we can take and just implement a policy that we enter our mileage.
Isn't that in our vehicle policy?
A few years ago, it was probably 5 years ago, it was put out that department heads could choose whether to put their mileage in or not.
But you can set the system up to where they can't get fuel unless they do that, right?
Correct.
Then get it done.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
Oh, this is a study session. We can't make a decision.
If we were going to make a decision, that's probably what it would be.
There you go. So moving forward, that's going to help a lot more when we get into utilization, what we're going to talk about next. Because if you're just tracking gallons, if a vehicle has to run to a conference and they get fuel, in Boise, then it skews the data. But if it's mileage, every time they go to fill their vehicle, they put the mileage in and automatically updates the system. I want to talk just a little bit about utilization and right siding, just kind of give you a definition of that real quick. We'll talk a little more about that later on, but utilization, what we try and do is, if a vehicle's not used for more than about 3,000 miles a year, it's considered an underutilized vehicle. And so what we've been trying to do, just preliminary data, is to use 300 gallons as our benchmark, 300 gallons a year. Police puts their mileage in, so we were able to get their average miles per gallon. Streets does the same, water and parks. And so we were able to get kind of a little feel of what we're averaging for miles per gallon. So we're using 300 gallons of fuel a year as an underutilized vehicle. When you start getting higher than that, that's when you just are at different levels of utilization. So we kind of played with it a little bit, just to give you guys a little insight into it. We analyzed 322 vehicles, which signify our light trucks and our medium trucks. We didn't do any equipment. We didn't do any dump trucks or anything like that.
You didn't do the mayor's car?
Yes, and we did a utilization study of those, and we used a 300-gallon minimum. Well, through that, we were able to find 66 vehicles that are considered underutilized.
Oh, let's look at it.
And so moving forward, if we decide to go down this route and we start capturing mileage, there's a possibility that we might be able to get rid of some assets. The city of Durham did a study on underutilized vehicles, and they can cost you anywhere from $1,000 to $5,000 a year because the batteries die, the tires rot, the gas with maintenance. So there's a possibility, depending on how this utilization study goes, you sell off 66 vehicles, you might get a one-time savings of $103,000 right off the bat going to auction. But then you've probably got another $70,000 moving forward that you can offset those costs. Now those numbers are real crude and raw. I just wanted to kind of give you an idea of what a utilization study is. And that would be probably if this is the road you want to go down, that'd probably be one of the first steps we want to go through. The next thing we did is we visited with all the department heads that we could and visited their work site. We sent out an email, and I think we met with everybody but 2 departments. And we wanted to just get their take on where they're at with their fleet. We put together a little questionnaire. We asked everybody the same questions. It was based on number of technicians they have, amount of service that's done inside compared to outside. And then we also asked for their pros and their cons of what they envision as a centralized fleet. And through this, with data, we put together what we think is an improvement approach and an action plan that we can go through moving forward. So the next 2 slides are some of the pros and the cons that we got when talking with some of the department heads. I'm a pro fleet guy, but we really tried on this to be as neutral as we could and just try and present as honest of an assessment as we can to you, so that you can make a good decision that's not one swayed one way or the other. So we've just listed some of the benefits that you can get through a centralized fleet. You can get improved utilization of equipment. the economies of scale are huge when you start buying in bulk. You get a better overall evaluation of the total fleet costs. We want to try and capture the initial cost of that asset and track it all the way till it's dead. I mean, long term, we want to try and get a cost per mile on a vehicle. And so we need to know what we paid for it, the depreciation, what our operating costs are. Another benefit is there's consistency in procurement. I think if we move down a centralized fleet, we probably need to work down to a centralized procurement so that we can take advantage of these economies of scales. When we spec out a pickup truck, we always make sure we get it with the same size tire, or we get the same brand, so we can benefit off bulk purchases. And leading to that, it'll give us fewer parts that are needed in inventory. We've actually reached out to Napa Auto Parts. We talked to one of their associates. They have a plan where they come and build a parts store in your facility, and they man it, and they supply all of the parts for your fleet. They come and do a fleet analysis, and they stock all the filters you need, all the brake parts you need, and they build basically a small Napa parts store in your building. And then they supply a man that's your parts man. So it's kind of neat, some of the things that are happening in the fleet world. Another efficiency is the consolidation of shop equipment. What we saw when we were going around to different departments, a lot of the departments have their own specialized diagnostic tools, but those same diagnostic tools would work on other pieces of equipment. So there's an opportunity to consolidate some of those diagnostic tools. Identification of obsolete units, that kind of goes back into our right sizing, our utilization. The big thing is the centralized and consistent records. The records were kind of all over the place. Some are doing really good and tracking. Some are just going off the sticker in the window from Jiffy Lube. Another benefit is pooled resources and more flexibility of skilled mechanics. You have these guys together and they bounce ideas off each other. And then a single agency management control so that you don't have one guy that's playing favors to another. That was another thing that we'll talk about next, is the prioritization of equipment. And then the big thing is a preventative maintenance program. The preventative maintenance programs are kind of all over the board. One nice aspect of our central fuel site is Teresa can pull a report at the end of the week and send it to the department, and it'll give you all the mileage of all the vehicles that fueled that week. What we've done, and some of the other departments, I think water does this as well, and police, they can input that into their asset management program and set their preventative maintenance program off of that. So it automatically, when they upload it, it triggers a request that says, this vehicle's close to a service, you better order filters and get it ready. So it's been really helpful to have that mileage. Okay. Some of the concerns that were brought up. Some of the big things were the cost of service. There's always the unknown. We don't know what it's going to cost. We heard a lot about the $39 oil change at Jiffy Lube. Can you do it as cheap as that? And so there's some nervousness there, I would say. Billing, there was some concern on how the billing is going to be handled. I've talked with Joyce a little bit about it, and this is another one of those, if we move down another level, where Joyce is going to become a very important part of this process. Service level, concerned, if they have it in their department, then they kind of control how good that's getting done. And to relinquish that to another department and just kind of depend on them to control it, it just causes a little uneasiness. Inconvenience. It's sometimes easier in the morning just to start the truck. If it doesn't work, you pull it in the shop, the mechanic fixes it. If we're in a centralized location, you may now have to drive that piece of equipment or get that piece of equipment over to a centralized shop. We had one department head that mentioned that it could possibly hurt local business. So that's another issue. The biggest issue we heard from everybody, though, was the prioritization of assets. Who's going to fix my stuff first, And so as we go farther down into this, that's something that's going to be very critical. And so if we go down this road, the first thing that I would recommend is to create some sort of a fleet policy board where you have a lot of the key players on. We're definitely going to want to do emergency services. They get top priority. But then we go into routes. Sanitation has to pick up garbage. PRT has to pick up their patrons. And then you have essential services with water and sewer. So that process is going to be, there's going to be a lot of give and take going there. Fortunately for us, there's a lot of agencies that are going to decentralized fleet, so there's a lot of models that we can follow. Another big issue that we ran across with a lot of the departments is the mechanic overlap to other department functions. So we heard a lot that, we're lean on staff, so we're using our mechanics to do certain other tasks.
How many mechanics do we have in the city?
I think we're at 14 mechanics. And so some of the concerns there is, if we're short people for the day, we can send that mechanic to drive a truck or do this or do that. And if they go away, then that adds a little bit of complexity to that scenario. And then another concern was mobile and on-site repair coordination. If a garbage truck's on top of the hill and blows a hydraulic line, are we going to get up there? Is fleet going to get up there? Are they going to get it fixed? Are they going to clean up the mess? Who's going to transport the driver to get another truck? So there's a lot of logistics that need to be ironed out. Okay. So what we found is that fleet activities in Pocatello are substantially decentralized. Each department is responsible for their own plan, and that includes their vehicle replacement plans. So everybody's kind of got their own system in each one of their departments. Fleet maintenance and repair is also decentralized. It's the same as what we said before. Each department kind of uses different procedures and systems to repair their vehicles. Fleet management software is kind of all over the board. We have a lot of departments that have their own fleet management software. Each one's using a different one. They may have maintenance fees. There may be some economies of scales in that as well to centralize that. So we're only purchasing one program or software. So centralizing of all fleet activities for the city. These are some of the things that I think we can get to if we go down this road. I think leveraging core competencies is a huge thing. I mean, if you got a lot of people in the room, you get a lot more better answers. Capturing economies of scales, you reduce duplication of effort. The biggest thing is you want to look at this as a holistic approach. You want to look at your whole fleet as a city, not just as a department by department by department. So go on ahead to the next one. So if this is a direction you choose to go, we kind of looked over some other cities' models, and this is kind of the progress of the way they kind of develop their programs. First, you of course would need to create its own department. I think fleet needs to be its own department, so it's a neutral party. Next, you want to do a utilization study, because you don't want to try and plan your mechanics and your facility based on equipment that you may get rid of because you don't need it. So you want to try and cut down as much of that underutilized equipment as you can. And then you get into developing a budget. That's where I talked earlier, where Joyce had become a very important part of that. Creating a fleet advisory board. I think you're going to have to get complete buy-in from departments for this to work. We're going to have to, there's going to be probably some tough conversations. We talked with the city of Boise. The three of us went up and visited the city of Boise. They centralized their fleet in, I believe, 2008 or 2009. And I think by 2013 or 14, they were recognized as one of the best fleets in the United States. And it was a very good resource that we went up there and met with them. They said that when I was talking to their fleet manager, he says, you guys have done most of the work that our consultant did for us. He says, the one thing the consultant was really nice about was the consultant was that person that everybody could yell at. You know what I mean? And so it was the guy in the middle that's taking all the heat. So that's another issue coming down the road, whether or not to hire a consultant to double check our work, or whether we want to try and bite this and do it on our own. Through the Fleet Advisory Board, you need to develop some performance measures. I mean, we need to decide what's an adequate level of service and what we're going to do if that level of service isn't met. The next step would be to perform a facility needs assessment and purchase or build a facility. The American Public Works Association actually has these equations that I believe the Army Corps of Engineers initially came up with, to where you can make your technicians a variable to determine how many bays you need, how many lifts you need, and it'll help you decide on the size of your facility depending on how many assets you have. The same would be true with the mechanics. If you're going to combine all the mechanics into one location, you need to perform a needs assessment on those mechanics as well. There's a lot of resource with the APWA as well. You can put your assets as a variable. They call them a VEU, vehicle equivalency unit. And so a normal sedan is 1 VEU, and it takes roughly 22 hours a year to maintain that 1 VEU. Well, a pickup truck is 3 VEUs. And so it takes about 66 hours a year to maintain that vehicle. And then you get into, like, a dump truck's a 7, a garbage truck's an 8 or a 9, a street sweeper's a 14. And what you can do with that is as you factor in all of your fleet, then you can start dividing it out and figure out how many mechanics you need. So it's a pretty neat way to control your staffing levels and find out what you need and what you don't need.
So it'd be pretty simple to run those numbers at this point in the game and kind of find out where we're at number-wise, right?
Yeah, and we've actually ran those numbers. So, but like I said, we didn't want to get you too far in the weeds today until we got a direction of which way you're looking to go. But we have some of that stuff already done. The next thing is, moving forward, is develop a mechanic training program. Right now, throughout the city, we don't know what the talent pool is amongst all the mechanics. If you move into a centralized fleet, you're now going to have mechanics that are working on a 2017 police car or a 1982 John Deere backhoe. And so there's going to have to be a little bit of specialized work that goes on in there. And then the biggest thing I think that's going to help make this successful is you need to implement a standard fleet management software so that you can track a vehicle from the beginning of its life to the end of its life. So you know how much that vehicle's costing you from beginning to end, and so you know when that vehicle's costing you more to maintain than what it's worth. And then it makes sense to roll your fuel supply, your central fuel supply and management into central fleet, because that's going to be a big data grabber for your fleet program. Next big thing that's going to need to happen is the policy is going to have to be updated. The city policy really is pretty vague right now, and it needs to be updated. It really lacks a comprehensive set of fleet policies. Each department's kind of doing their own thing over their past policies and what they've done in the past. I think it would be helpful moving forward to have a certain procedure you use. We talked a lot about vehicle replacement plans with all the departments, and everybody's got kind of a different way they do it. We found a metric where you give a number value to a certain questions that you're asked about that asset, and then you add that number value up, and it tells you if that's a vehicle that's in need of replacement. It kind of quantifies it into a number. So that's something that could be adopted into a policy. There's also little things, idle policies. A vehicle that idles for an hour, it burns almost a full gallon of gas in an hour. If you put in an idle policy where if you can limit one vehicle from idling for an hour, it's like $25,000 a year in savings. Just little teeny things that you can enact that have long-term effects. So with that in mind, I think you would want to develop a fleet policy manual. You definitely want to develop some fleet replacement criteria, and then develop a short and long-term replacement policy. And that's going to go hand in hand with your right sizing analysis. And then as well, as part of that policy is then you start looking at different funding options, whether or not you need to lease, whether you want to build reserve funds, or whether you want to pay cash. I kind of have likened this to our pavement management plan, this fleet plan, as we've dug deeper into it. You save up enough money to buy a really expensive piece of equipment, and by the time you have enough money to pay for that one equipment, you've already had 3 pieces of equipment that died, because everything's aging as fast as you can save up money for it. So maybe in those situations you want to look at leasing, where you can get, for small amounts of money, you can get new equipment. Whether or not that's the right solution for us, that remains to be seen. Am I going too fast? I'm just trying to get you guys caught up a little bit. So I just wanted to share this with you. This is kind of the little knee jerk. We currently have 519 fleet assets, and we've grabbed those from our fuel site. This does not include airport, WPC, and PRT because they have their own fueling sites. So we just grabbed everybody but that. So we have 519 assets. Our average age of our assets is 13 years old. The industry standard is you don't want anything older, you only want 10% of your fleet older than 7 years. That's kind of the standard. Right now we're at 74% of our fleet is over 7 years. So it's kind of a shocking little tale right there, that I think we're getting behind. You know what I mean? And I think the way we've been doing it, whether this is the right way or not, we need to address it. Looking at these numbers, it shocked me when we ran these numbers.
It doesn't shock me.
Right. So I think either way, no matter which way it goes, if this is a direction you go or not, I think it can bring to light certain things that we can do to improve, to try and modernize our fleet and get it back up better. We use this little graph off to the side is what we use at street department. It's a utilization curve. So we have costs over time, and so you buy the asset and you depreciate it over the life of the asset, and then you plot how much it costs to operate that, fuel costs, maintenance costs. And as soon as those lines cross, that's when you need to start thinking about getting rid of it. As soon as you go above that, then you're spending more money to maintain it than what it's worth. Another big thing about that is once you start modernizing that fleet, your opportunity costs go up as well. I'm going to grab this and I'm going to read this to you because it's a little confusing. Fleet downtime currently is we're not measuring fleet downtime, but the industry benchmark is usually 5% of each employee's time is spent waiting for a repaired piece of equipment. If you get your equipment working better and you modernize it, that's 27,000 hours you can improve. And if you improve your level of service below 5%, we ran the numbers and that equals out to 13 positions of opportunity costs and somewhere around $600,000 that you could potentially gain by not having people waiting for their equipment. Does that make sense? I know I kind of rushed through that a little bit. So to wrap it up a little bit, at the end of the day, the majority of the city's maintenance operations do not focus on scheduling vehicle repair services to minimize or avoid disrupting operations. Most of the repairs are done during the day. The jobs usually shut down if there's no spare. Most of the city's maintenance repair operations do not routinely track performance measures to fully understand the productivity of the shop. And then the city's maintenance levels, I want to be careful with this because we haven't really researched this great, but I think we have the right amount of mechanics, but I think they're distributed incorrectly. I think certain departments might need a little more, maybe a little less, we don't know. But that's something that we would want to look into. When we look at it from this 30,000 feet, that's kind of what it's looking like to us. And then the preventative maintenance standards are pretty inconsistent citywide, and they vary among departments.
One of the things we talked about early on in this one we was looking at is the fact that the possibility of maybe contracting out to a fleet maintenance group to do that rather than do it in-house. Mm-hmm. Once you get to the point, if we send you that way to do a preliminary budget with facility and all that stuff included in there, is it going to be fairly easy to go out and look at a similar situation and find out what those numbers look like compared to a contractor, compared to doing our own?
I think so. Most of the research we've done, the municipalities doing that. They're controlling their own fleet. But John Banks and I were talking about that as well. I think there's definitely an opportunity. I would imagine if you approach someone, they would build a facility for the business. So that's something that we can definitely research if you would like moving forward. There was a company that I spoke with that they'll come in and write you a check for $50 million. They'll buy every asset you got, and then they send you a bill to rent it every month.
Well, and if that bill is comparable to what you think the bill is going to be annually to build it and do it yourself, that's one thing. If it's 5 times as much, it's a different story.
Exactly.
Right?
So there's a lot of options out there. What we've been seeing mostly on the research we've done is most of the cities are controlling their own fleet. But I can't give you that 100%. We could definitely, if you'd like to have more information and go maybe down to 15,000 feet, I would be more than happy to do that for you.
Couple questions here. You said you thought we had the right number of mechanics.
Pardon?
You said you felt we had the right number of mechanics.
Preliminarily, I think we do.
The beginning statement you made was that we got mechanics or departments that are concerned that cross-utilization of mechanics, which would indicate that the mechanics are not working on being mechanics 8 hours a day.
Yeah.
So I'd have to assume then that there's a possibility that if this reorg, you could reduce your mechanics and optimize departments so that there were people doing the job that they were hired to do rather than the job that needed to be done.
Right. That was a little bit of a surprise to me when we were having the interviews. Is there's a lot of the mechanics doing some other jobs, and some of that job is. I apologize. Some of that job is facility maintenance. They take care of the building. Stuff like that.
Yeah. Second part of this, did you find out from Boise if they started this out completely full bore at once, or did they do a beta?
They kind of phased it in. They did a phased
program,
in.
and that's what I would suggest we do. Beta with street and sanitation. They're close to each other right now, aren't they? I mean, I tell you, it does bother me every time we get the P card summary that there's 5 different departments buying tires. Okay? Now here's always a concern of transparency of tires, fuel filters, wrenches. Okay? I wish I had the dollars that I'd spent on wrench sets over here because I can never find a 9/16 or half-inch wrench. I don't know where they go. But they're the most endangered tool in the world. So I think there's some efficiencies here, but I think it would be best if we beta program this in and see how it works. So.
Well, I was going to follow up with that. So Boise, from the time they had their idea to the first implementation of this, how long did it take them?
It was almost a year.
Okay.
They said from when they initially, kind of started thinking about it until it was 100% phased in, they said it was like 6 to 7 years.
Well, yeah, when they first started phasing, it was about a year after conception.
Yeah.
But they said it's probably going to take you 6-7 years if you want to do it to where she's running like a sewing machine. So.
But they were recognized, you said 2009, and then 2013 there.
I think it was 14, yeah.
So within 5 years,
yeah,
they were one of the best in the
because they're not where they want to be either. They told us their fuel site, that's one thing that we would have going for us. We have a pretty state-of-the-art fuel site. Their fuel management up there, they said they're still struggling with that. They've got fuel sites all over the place, and people writing on paper. So.
Okay. You said earlier that, and obviously this is true, we need to have all of the departments on board if we're going to move forward with this. I imagine there were some that, as you started doing the research on this, were kind of like, no, this is not something I'm interested in. Do you feel like after you talk to them that they could see some of the potential benefits and they're coming around, or do we still have some people that are really anti?
Right. We were probably about 50-50 on, there's some that were really anti against it and some that were okay. We tried not to sell it. We just wanted to get their ideas and just get their honest assessment from it. So they just gave us their honest words, and these were the concerns that came up. So I don't know if I could really answer that because we didn't really go into depth that way.
Okay.
That's something that we could do if you'd like, though.
With the data you've already collected, is it possible for us to project the size of facility that we might need?
Yeah.
So
it will be a little skewed because, if we do a right sizing and a utilization study, you may lose 50 units. So at worst case, it may be a little bigger than what but that's not a bad thing. That gives you room for growth.
Kind of like computers, you probably grow into them.
Exactly.
So would you envision mechanics that work in the off hours so that everything's ready to go during the job hours?
Absolutely. I think you would split the crew and have a swing shift. where they come in at maybe 10 o'clock and work till 7 at night. And then those, like for me, from our asphalt paver, I don't want them working on it at 9 in the morning because I need to be laying asphalt, but they can work on it at 6 o'clock when we go home. So I think there's some opportunities there for that as well.
And you think we're big enough for something like this?
Yeah. Well, that's what we've seen in our research. Yeah. There's Bannock County. I've talked with Bannock County. They've been a central fleet for years and years and years, and they're like half the assets we are. We had set up a time to go talk with Idaho Falls because they're a centralized fleet as well. We just haven't made it up there. Life's been.
When you say Bannock County is centralized fleet, what do you mean? So
the Bannock County Road and Bridge Department, they take care of all the police cars, public works, and I think the commissioner vehicles. Brett Grayson is their public works director now, but he started the centralized fleet program, I think he said 15 years ago, 20 years ago.
That way for a long time.
Yeah.
When we went over and met with Boise, there were several other communities that met with us as well. And Meridian is just in the process of implementing a fleet management program with their city. And so comparable size communities are getting on board with it.
And again, I don't have a problem with the fleet management. As long as we understand what it is and we fully comprehend what it is not. Okay.
There's going to be growing pains, if it's a road that we go down, if a sanitation truck starts and he's got a tail light that's burned out, do we have people there that can put a bulb in? Does that go to a central, there's going to be a lot of unknown questions and there's going to be a lot of debate back and forth,
But we have to find solace in the fact that we're not breaking new ground here.
Correct.
We can avoid some of those growing pains by using other people's growing pains.
Exactly.
How do we incorporate our independent utilities into something like this?
So the majority of fleet agencies that we've seen is just a chargeback rate. You have a set shop rate. The mechanics, they track through their work order, their software, they track how many hours they're turning wrenches. And so if they need to go make a phone call, they hit their workstation and they shut the clock off. They go do what they needed to do. They come back and give an honest bill. So I think Boise was $77 an hour was their shop rate. And then I think that's what it was.
Their mechanics were like 95% utilized.
Yeah, they
in the high 90, low to mid 90 utilization on their
very productive. So, and that's just something we'd have to go through in this process is figuring out what's a rate that works for us. And then you can also audit that back off of. They call it the flat rate book. You have a flat rate program that says it should take you this long to do this, and that's what most of your commercial repair shops go off of to write you an estimate.
So if we were to dream how to do this, instead of hiring a consultant, might we hire just our general manager for that? And make them our consultant and the person that puts this together?
We very well could, yeah. Boise, it was funny that said the best thing you can do is plagiarize. He says there's a million there's a lot of communities doing this, and he says they just plagiarized like you wouldn't believe. And it boils down to why reinvent the wheel.
So our fleet manual's almost done.
Yeah, they offered, they said, and we'll give you our study and we'll help you guys out and, we'll help you as much as we can. And, we had a great group of people over there that everybody was willing to reach out and help us at whatever we need along the path.
Yeah, they actually have one of those little Napa stores in their facility. And the guy that works in there, he doesn't just sell the Napa parts. If they need a part from Freightliner for a big truck, he also calls and gets that. So there is a cost associated with it, but that's something that moving down we'd have to look at.
If we have different departments that are buying a number of vehicles at a time, do you see this as more of a coordinated effort than a department effort then? So let's say police need 5 patrol cars. They give you specs to this facility in coordination with each other. You decide, and instead of the police department spending all their time tracing down who's got the best price, then the fleet department would do it.
And that's the way I see it. I mean, policemen are really good at being policemen, and street guys are good at street, and water guys are good at water, This just puts that in the wheelhouse of a fleet department that lives and breathes it.
And with this, also maybe not facilitate, but demand, like our fire, we buy uniform fire equipment, so tire efficiency purchases and transference of equipment is more streamlined.
Yeah. The fire departments, we talked with Heather a little bit yesterday. That might be a little tricky because it's a union shop mechanic. I don't know how we mold that together, but that's something that we can work on.
We'll mold it.
So. Any other questions?
He's leaving. How are we going to mold it?
We could work on a 9-day.
Okay.
Great.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
I'd just like to
go ahead.
Just like to point out one thing. I appreciate the street department, Tom and Teresa, for the effort that they put into this. And just to let you guys know, I know Tom has gone to several fleet presentations at different conferences that he's been at, and this is just one example of the city's dollars at work. Sending our employees to conferences. This is the kind of thing that we can come up with at these conferences. We can bounce ideas off of different communities and really figure out what's best for the city of Pocatello. So the dollars are being well spent.
Good. Well, I think there's a fairly general consensus of come down from the 30,000 foot and take a closer look.
Okay, we'll start gathering data and get another study session planned.
Okay.
We actually we didn't know which way you were going to go, but we do have a Gantt chart, they call it. It's a little planning tool that kind of steps out the process for it, so you can kind of see how that'll go.
Okay.
And so I'll get it to Ruth and she can pass that.
Would that include such things as starting with all new vehicles or starting with what we have?
What we have. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Well, the public thinks that
We'd love to start with all new if you're ready.
The public thinks that we drive all new vehicles anyway.
Yeah.
They can't, that's one of I get that complaint all the time. Oh man, you guys sure drive nice trucks. Well, they see the one new truck that we bought all year long.
Yeah.
And so we go down this road and we have a more modern fleet.
I think trying to buy a whole brand new fleet, well, I know it would just drive it out of the realm of possibility.
Yeah.
So.
All right. Well, thank you very much.
All right.
We'll move on to agenda item number 8, the Great American Eclipse event, private property use. City staff will be present to discuss with the council potential ordinance exceptions allowing private property owners to rent space for RV parking for the period of Thursday, August 17th through Wednesday, August 23rd, 2017 during the Great Eclipse event.
We're getting there.
It is all yours. Take us away.
Thank you, Council President. Council President, members of the council. The reason here today is to get guidance from you regarding something that's probably or is likely coming down the pike. I've informally discussed with the police department, with planning department, and at this point we have some information that Beck and Grace are inclined to file for an exception to our ordinance which prohibits certain uses of RVs on private property. The prohibitions that currently exist is no cooking. You cannot live there for more than 14 days. There's some other time restrictions, and and there's also some issues regarding what the planning designation. And thinking about it, staff came up with other considerations to worry about, perhaps sanitation, just garbage, things of those natures. I do believe that this request for an exception to this will be coming regarding the eclipse. The broad strokes of it, where they're talking 6-7 days. And what I wanted to find out from the council was, one, presumably for example, Blackfoot, they've created a complete exception. They're basically all free, all no holds barred. I personally don't think that's the best approach for the city of Pocatello. I would like to do this orderly and in a straightforward fashion. So if the council were inclined to, well, they're going to follow the request for an exemption. I would suggest to the council that we do it on a case-by-case basis rather than across the board exemption to the ordinance. We're just looking for some this is going to happen. The eclipse is going to happen on August 21st. And it's with a certain degree of scientific certainty, yes.
Is there, I mean, we know that there is going to be, we're in the path. There's going to be a lot of people here.
Yes.
What that means, I don't know. Is it cumbersome to go on a case-by-case basis?
Well, I don't know if, I guess for me, in that sense, no, because what I would envision is we have some type of agreement between us and MEC or us and Grace Lutheran Church. And we develop some type of, at the department level, develop some type of, for lack of a better term, or form, or some type of matrix, if you will, so that we can address these, and then we can streamline that to get that to council, so that we can address the concerns.
Right. Is there a way that we can lay that out ahead of time so that they can come apply and it's automatic instead of each one of them coming to the council in a council meeting?
Yes, we could do it that way. I mean,
I'm just thinking, man, we could be in some meetings that could last a long time with a long line of people. I don't know if we will or not.
No, it's complicated, like I said.
But I agree, Steve. There's got to be a simple way to do that, and it makes a whole lot more sense to do that some way than to just open up everything.
Open up the floodgates.
It would look to me like if we do that, and the word gets out, we're going to be the free KOA campground for a week. I mean, that looks to me like that could be real problematic, I think. It could be. That's looking for trouble, I think.
And that's some of the concerns, I mean, just the number of people, but looking at garbage, refuse, or all the components that you have when you have a large group of people. And that's concerns that have been expressed to me and some of the concerns that I have, but from the other department heads, and just in conversation on this. Yeah. So what I'm hearing is we could try and get together with planning and police and sanitation, because I think the big thing is what we're talking about is RVs, and if the council's all right with this, I would be back probably in a formal meeting just for this specific issue with some type of form or some approval from the council, so that we cannot keep coming back just at one time.
So what you're really looking at is a guideline for people parking on private property or public property?
Our ordinance addresses both. And so we would have to look at, that's one of the things we'd have to look at. For example, I'll give you in our ordinance, it talks about RV parking in a residential district. Now, Grace Lutheran is located in RCP. MEC is located in general commercial. It's a different zoning. So these are issues that we would like to address at staff level, and that's what we would intend to do so that we can address. So we'd be looking at primarily at this point, the people that are expressing interest are private citizens, or well, not private, but private companies not on public right of way. There's a concern about parks turning into, we do have an ordinance that prohibits individuals from staying in the park past half an hour after sundown. I don't, personally, it's your decision, but personally, I don't think we want a bunch of people camping out in our parks.
No, but so what you're telling me is, I get them not fully following us today, but so I can't have an RV parked in my yard?
I'm not saying that.
Well, let me ask you a question, because I heard cooking stuff, but how do you monitor and control that?
I'm sorry?
I heard you said that they could have an RV, but they weren't supposed to cook in it?
Yes, that's in our ordinance.
How do you control that?
Well, that's one of the issues we're trying to address is the reality is if
the cooking.
No, I understand. How do we control that? I don't think we logistically can.
Yeah. So how are you going to stop me from having an RV in my yard. See what I'm saying?
I'm Steve Heath with Pocatello Code Enforcement. Under the city ordinances, we cover that.
There's not enough you to go around in that day, that weekend.
Well, no, I'm saying now, as now, we cover the RV code for the private property and how it's parked, how it's placed on the property, and how it's used. So we cover that in our job description now. So
if I know where I live and just jump up the street a couple of yards and check that out. Grace Lutheran you mentioned. Can Grace Lutheran allow people to come park RVs in their...
On our current code, they cannot receive compensation for that, and there are time limits.
Okay, so it's a donation.
Well, our ordinance reads no compensation for either the owner or the...
That's God's problem. See what I'm saying? We can sit here and debate this because we have a potato expo up there and they dump all sorts of stuff up there in the dome parking lot. That's Idaho State. I guess I'm confused of where this 3 to 5 day period, because of the sheer numbers we're talking about, are we going to turn all of our police officers into code enforcement?
No, that's what we're trying to avoid, Councilman. We're trying to do this in an orderly fashion so that we can have control, but we also we're not preventing it from happening, but we're trying to maintain some control and hopefully put some onus back on the private property owners to conduct themselves as we hope they would as good neighbors.
I understand that, and I don't have a problem going forward with that. I fear that, there's no adage, it's easier to ask for forgiveness than permission, and I think there may be a fair amount of that goes on. But anyway.
Sure, and I agree with that, but we have to do what we can do in the meantime. And so I'm thinking where we're going is look at what that exception looks like. Mm-hmm. We'll have to vote on that exception. Along with that is the parameters of what that exception is for each individual requester. If they meet those parameters, they sign the paperwork, they're good to go.
I mean, there's some guidelines that could be part of this. Say X amount of people, you have to have X amount of dumpsters, or X amount of people, you have to have X amount of extra facilities, bathroom facilities, and things like that.
Right.
There's some guidelines that can be put in that.
And that's what we would be looking at
Under the current city ordinances for recreational vehicles, you can live in a recreational vehicle up to 14 days in a given year. So the time frame is not a factor in this, where it's going to be 5 to 7 days. You're still under the time limit of that. You may have some lingering on that may end up being problems, but that's not going to be that big of a deal, I don't think. I think as soon as it's over, they're going to blast out of here as quick as they blasted in.
Well, I think the sooner that we get this done so that the public has opportunity to address it, I think.
I agree.
All right. Yeah. Well, unless council has questions for me, I believe we have the guidance. Yes, sir.
I'm just concerned. Terry, have you given some thought to this? Do you have some ideas?
Yeah. I've met, yes. Come on up.
I mean, I'd like to hear what some of the ideas are.
Yes, actually, I've talked with Rich and Melanie and Matt about this. There are concerns, like we want to make sure it's orderly, that if people are pulling RVs into, say, the MEC parking lot, that if they're the first ones in and they have an emergency, they can get out, or the ambulance and fire truck can get in. Also, if they need to dump, they need to be able to get out. And if they need water, it's going to be up to either them to get it off-site, or else MEC is going to provide hoses and they'll fill up there, and then MEC has extra water consumption on their bills, things like that. I just mentioned to Melanie, ISU, yes, they have the Potato Expo up there every year, and then they also have a huge wrestling camp up there every summer, and you'll see RVs and tents up there for a week, and it's very orderly. They have things in place of how they can set up and where they can set up and things like that. I mean, they turn their sprinklers off for a week every summer so people can camp out on their lawn. And so we can contact them and say, how do you do this? How do you handle this? Because we already have things in place locally that we can we can go and check and see how they do them. I think we can handle it very orderly. But I think there are things that we do need to make sure that are in place for people's safety and cleanliness. So.
Good. I thought somebody would have thought about these things.
Rich would have got there.
Well, so we can do like this previous group said, plagiarize.
Well,
Exactly.
That's what, well, it always happens. Trust me, that's illegal. That's the building of the legal profession. We don't reinvent the wheel that often.
Okay. All right. Okay, super. Thank you.
Thank you.
Then we'll move on to agenda item number 9, the budget amendments for fiscal year 2017. Representatives from the Finance Department will be present to provide information and explanation for proposed budget amendment requirements for fiscal year 2017.
I guess it's good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Joyce Stroshine, Chief Financial Officer for the city. And this should be short and sweet. I only have 7 slides. Let me just get my notes here. So we have 38 listed amendments affecting 10 funds. We've put the public notice in the paper on May 31st and again on June 7th. And today, of course, we're covering in detail those budget amendments. And then next week at the City Council meeting, we'll hold a public hearing. And at the end of the meeting, we'll have you consider the ordinance for publication and adoption. In the general fund, we have $236,917.04 in budget amendments. In the Mayor and Council division, we have 3 items that are really related to our youth council. They purchased more t-shirts, which the funds that came from this was from a fundraiser, and so that's $146.37. The Youth Council Blanket Project, this is another fundraiser reimbursement, $89.58. Youth Council Adopt a Trail Sign, $15, and these monies were brought in from their fundraiser as well. You have need for the travel expenditure for Coffee with the Mayor. That was a sponsorship provided by L&K Carpet. It's $205. The National League of Cities, this is Mayor and Council travel. This is being reimbursed from the AIC for the mayor to attend two events. And that was $2,996.09. In the police department, we have equipment purchase. That was for dispatch desks. We had monies that they had set aside in the capital acquisition fund, $96,287. Evidence lockers, once again, that was out of the capital acquisition reserve fund, $26,451. They had a need for a vehicle to be replaced. It was in an accident, and so there was an ICRIP claim, and then they needed some additional monies for the reserves because the two combined, they needed both of those parts to replace the vehicle, which was $37,793 of additional authority. They also have supplies for child safety seats. This is being funded by an ITD grant, $11,150. Child safety seat training, that was also provided by an ITD grant, $743. Then we had the Traeger breath testing equipment. This was also provided with an ITD grant, $10,375. They did their firearms where they made their major purchase, but they traded in some old firearms. The revenue from the old firearms, which was $4,500, was needed to complete the purchase. This is just the amendment giving them the authority to expend that $4,500 towards those weapons that they have purchased. Response vehicle, that's the fire capital vehicle. The money that is going to fund this response vehicle is coming from the fire apparatus fund. It's $42,666. This is for one of their officer. Let me look at that again. It's the chief officer response vehicle. Then we have Parks Capital Infrastructure. They had an ITAP Trails project. There was a donation from the Portneuf Greenway for $3,500. This is the match required on the project. and that is the summation of all the general fund amendments. The other funds total $2,578,969.86. In the risk liability insurance fund, we're requesting a transfer of monies from the risk fund to the workers' compensation fund of $300,000. This is to facilitate rebuilding the reserves in the work comp fund. The street department, overtime wages. This was for overtime and call-out wages related to the snow, the excess snow we had this year. They are going to use their excess reserves for this purpose. That's $87,553. Street department, contracted services. This was for snow removal as well, and they're going to use the excess reserves for that purpose, $26,252. Fuel, salt, patching, supply expenditures related to snow removal. They're going to use reserves for this purpose. That was $43,999. Street wages, this was for 2 employees for store management. We are going to exceed our highway user revenue this year, so they're going to use those excess monies for the purpose of hiring the 2 employees for the remainder of the year. That totals $39,775. The street department is also requesting wage for 6 employees for abatement duties. We will have excess revenues coming in beyond expectation in the road and bridge revenue account, so we need $115,000 to cover those 6 employees on the part-time basis. Street transfer, use of reserves to transfer to the federal aid fund to meet the complete need for the expectation for the Benton Street Bridge project. That was an additional $80,000. Street department capital, use of reserves for the Olympus extension project. That's estimated at $500,000. So that would be a planned expenditure upon execution of that project. Street capital, use of reserves for additional paving projects. With the excess snow that we received this year, we had additional need for additional paving, and so $150,000 is being set aside for that purpose. Recreation capital, donations. These donations were used to develop the disc golf course up at the Nordic Center, and the donation came from, sorry, I have to remember here, Lions Club. So, okay, recreation capital. They have a reserve account. It's in Fund 963, and you'll hear about that later when you hear about the transfer. It was to be used for the production of that new CRC gym floor. So $4,708.43 there. Recreation capital donation used for the CRC gym floor replacement, and I believe that one is related to Basic American Foods is who gave that donation. So that was for $10,000. Cemetery transfer. This is a transfer of excess reserves to the capital savings. That's $55,000. And whenever I discuss transfers, there's not an expenditure going out. It's just the authority to move it from one fund to the other. I think you all are aware of how that function works, but I still have to have authority to do that. Cemetery capital, the use of reserves to purchase their flatbed truck, $35,000. Airport, repairs and maintenance, use of reserves to repair the HVAC in the main terminal, $61,250. And library, capital, use of excess reserves to upgrade lighting, $106,865. Now, the net project on that will be less because we are expecting an Idaho Power rebate. But we have to have full authority for the full expenditure, and then the monies that come in will help to offset that. So, transit rural capital, use of reserves to improve facilities and equipment. Just to give you a little more detail than that, their planned use is for a forklift, welding equipment, bus lifts and stands, tire mounting equipment, a wash bay equipment, and waste oil furnace and overhead crane are the items that are really composed of that $211,250. Transit Urban Capital purchased 6 new medium-duty buses. That's $430,581. Transit Urban Wages, increase in authority in part-time wages, $80,000. Now, the Transit Urban amendments, I need you to realize, we're not asking for additional match for this. In the reconfiguration of their grants after we had developed the budget last year, we determined that our match was in excess of what we had given them budget authority for, so this is kind of a reconfiguration to address their needs without having to take additional match dollars to meet these expenditures that we're talking about. Wellness supplies, purchase the AEDs, the blood pressure cuffs, the pedometers, and this is a donation from Aetna, $16,500. Public Works Capital, use of excess reserves to purchase the director vehicle, $32,000. Fire Apparatus Capital Fund, use of excess reserves to purchase the response vehicle. This is for the transfer. The money will be transferred into the fire department. I've already requested the authority in the fire department. So this is where you kind of see I have to get authority in 2 places, but I'm really only doing 1 expenditure. Capital acquisition transfer. This is the use of reserves to transfer to police for the dispatch desks, the evidence lockers, and the replacement vehicle, $139,162. Parks and Rec Trust transfer. This is to transfer the reserves to purchase the gym flooring that occurs in the Recreation Department, $1,408.43. Okay, these are all the amendments totaled by fund. You can see there's $2,815,886.90 that is being amended, and we have 10 funds that are being hit with the amendments. So, going forward, on June 15th, during the public hearing, you won't take any action. At the end of that public hearing, at the end of the meeting during the ordinance section is when you will vote on whether to adopt the amendments that we're proposing. Do you have any questions on the amendments?
Council? Nope, looks good.
Okay. And I'll need just a second to move into the next session.
Okay, sounds good. Well, I'll make the announcement that agenda item 10, we went ahead and pulled from our study session today and because of time, and we want to get through the budgeting process if we can. So that will be on the next study session. Agenda item 10 will be the employee handbook proposed changes.
Then I need to hand out.
So Mayor, would you adjourn this meeting so we can
So this meeting is adjourned? Absolutely, I would do that.
Thank you.
We'll start back up in a minute. You want me to hand those out for you?
Yeah, I think Males can help me out.